to move myself. Let me just do this.
Thank you.
Hello again. Oh, I've got a shorter
Thank you for fixing
table.
the table.
Oh, yeah. Like yours seem bigger.
That's fine. Collegial.
Thanks, Rebecca.
You know what? She's bloody good.
All right, where's the museum grants?
Someone had more.
Right, so thank you. This is the first round of the museums grants that that has been considered at a district level, as determined by council in October 2024. The budget available remains at the previous levels, which is $133,900. In addition to that, there's the money that the museum has, the council has given to the Central Otago Museum Trust for the coordinating function. This year, as I said in the previous report, you were able to consider multi-year funding because it's year one of the long-term plan. As this is a 2-year long-term plan, then you consider grants for up to 2 years. And ADMI, Teviot, Manitoto museums have all asked for that, not Cromwell. Cromwell's a year of transition that you heard from Martin.
Can you just put yourself on mute, please?
Which was pretty incredible.
Jumping back in. Thank you.
It's automatically unmuting there.
It is, yeah.
So Cromwell Museum going forward will be part of the Cromwell facility, whatever it might be called.
As you've done that.
And so this year, as you heard from Martin, the trust has applied to help with the transition and both setting up a good education program for the schools for when that new facility is open and to support the volunteers in their packing down and unpacking in a new space. The recommendations I gave you were based on the 24-25 funding levels because the budget hasn't changed. And museums continue to be an ongoing conversation, and we will be coming back to the new council at some time for that next part of that conversation. Following on from this morning's report, I've talked to Paul. We've got Paul in the room, but we've got. So you had in the community grants pot. There's $151,000, of which you allocated $116. $258, which leaves $34,742 for the second round. There is risk in using. They're both ward funded. They're both, district funded. However, the risk of using that is that you are imposing that decision on a new council when you're a month out from having a new council, and it reduces the ability of that pot of money to be used what it was set up to do, which was community grants. The conversation that you had in October was around the level of and the long-term plan before that was about the level of investment that you thought should be in the museum sector, and you set that budget at that time for that. That said, there are some options. You could make a decision today to use that money, or you could recommend to the new council that they consider it, or you wait until the March community grant round to see if there are applications that come through that or not, and use what funding might be available at the end of that or not. We've been talking about lots of possibilities. Another possibility is the Cromwell application is for a different thing than operations. It's for unique projects, and so it could be considered. It's not part of that museum operational funding, which is what the pot is about, and so perhaps that could be an option. Or what was the other thing? Anything else? There's lots of options. The thing is that all the museums are doing amazing things in their local community. I got to have a look in the Teviot Museum. It was very different to what I was expecting, a room with some stuff in it, but they're making they're doing exhibits. The volunteers down there are doing an amazing job. I've not yet had the opportunity to go in the Cromwell facility, so I can't wait to see that. But I was part of the online. ADMI have gone from strength to strength in the 3 years I've been working with them. They are, what they said, a smell of an woolly rag. And so there's hard decisions as a result of all of that. Completely off script.
I think that's really helpful to understand, and I guess to pick up the theme that I had for the other district grants we considered prior to lunch is that it's good to have the opportunity to be able to help everybody, and I take on board what we said about you take the money now, then it's not there for the future. We've got an expectation about that, and I think that's important to pick up on. I look at these museum grants and go, I think the Teviot staying at 2 when they only want 4. Find a way to make that happen. I'd love to be able to do that, and I'd be brave enough to say I'll take 2 of the how much is left.
34,000.
Take 2 of that at a drop of a hat now to do it.
Yep.
That only leaves ADMI, I guess, out of an increase and such. And I think that what we said, this was me saying, give the rest of the community a chance for round 2. ADMI can come back at round 2 as well and say we want to have a crack at that. No one else wants it. We're going to get anything better. But I think also they might have some work to do in that space about some of the activities that the Alexandra District Museum are doing, which I think is beyond the scope of a museum. So I think we need to look carefully at what we are funding. Museum funding should be for museums, and I don't understand fully, but I'm not too sure that poetry parties, men's health, Lost and Vegetable Art exhibition, musical events quite fit in what I class as being museum type functions. I have no idea what cost that has for them in terms of running it at all, but it seems to me saying, well, what's going to recommend it makes sense as they are. ADMI might get a chance to come back, the district grants around again and try and prove their case if there's money available and no one else wants it. But I would like to take $2,000 out of that one now and put that at the Teviot Museum. Or you've got to take someone else on there. I don't know. You can do that. That's my thoughts.
Just on ADMI, there's a report later in the agenda because ADMI did go to Vincent and they did request, I think, 30K from Vincent in recognition of their work that's above and beyond their museum function. The Vincent Community Board have granted 7.5, but hope to grant 10 in recognition of that. So just to note that. The other thing to mention is that later in the year, there will be a report coming to you about the Central Otago Museums Trust, because there is about $50,000 allocated for that, which is also sitting within this. And we have Jane Lancaster online, who is the chair of that trust, who, because this was the first round of the museum grant applications being considered by council as a whole, they had a look at the applications before they were sent to you. And I don't know if you've got some overview comments, Jane.
And I do apologise for background noise, because I am in Wellington Airport. So can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Thank you.
Yes, I've got, I'll actually be quite brief because I think this is a difficult IT environment, and I would have spoken more if I would have been at the table with you. I just want to say that we strongly advocate for all the museums that have applied to you for funding. In our strategy, we acknowledge the vital role that museums play in preserving and celebrating the diverse histories of the district. Each ward in Central Otago is unique with its own heritage, and these are safeguarded by the local museums. They're largely driven by volunteers, and they provide significant cultural, educational, and economic value for all residents, schools, and visitors. And consistent funding is essential to ensure their survival and continued relevance. Over the last 6 months, we've made a lot of progress in strengthening governance with a strategic plan and budget, and introducing shared tools such as a visitor survey and collections framework. And we've also had collaborative initiatives, including the 100 Objects exhibition
Yes,
And
the
these
airport.
These have demonstrated the benefits of working together across the network. We've developed partnerships with Te Papa, the Heritage Trust, and national researchers, creating new opportunities for education, professional development, and digital outreach. We're excited about the new Cromwell Museum, and that's a significant positive step forward. But we're also mindful of the importance of the other museums across the district. Each of them holds immense value for its local community and plays a critical role in narrating and preserving the broader story of Central Otago. So I've really enjoyed listening to the conversations that you've had and what Rebecca's been talking about. And we respectfully urge you to support all museum funding applications, recognising that each institution makes a unique contribution that cannot be replicated by any other in the district. And I thank you for the opportunity to share these thoughts with you.
Thank you, Jane. I've got two things to add. One is that you would have remembered through Martin's from Cromwell Museum's presentation that this year they have applied for the same level, which is 41,600, though next year it's likely to be significantly less. So in the 25-26 financial budget, you will have additional that money can be well allocated across the sector. And so this is a little bit of a 1 year issue because we have a little bit more flexibility because of that in the next financial year. The second point I would make is in the ADMI application is part of their request is for and this is my words rather than theirs, but a strategic review of their operations. And so to have a look at how they're doing what they do. And so if there was, I'm not recommending this, I'm just highlighting it for part of your thinking, is if there was an opportunity to support that, then you'd want to do that sooner rather than later.
Yes.
And Rebecca, you just mentioned it at the start that one of the options with the Cromwell Museum, because it's not strictly operational costs this year, that the money's going to, that there could be a way of looking at funding.
That was when we were brainstorming 5 seconds.
So what are our options there?
The struggle I have with the idea is the timing, because the projects that they sought funding for is to develop an education package for when the museum opens and for the packing down and opening of the new space. And so if we were to say, well, Cromwell Museum 20k now, and 20k later, I think the later, because you can't make that decision, won't be enacted until May. And I think that's getting pretty close. The downside of that is it's pretty close. Jane, can you please mute again, please?
Sure.
I've just got a couple of questions and thoughts on that. In terms of school holiday, like school programs, which is what Cromwell's asking for a chunk of money to formulate, is that not somewhere where our relationship with Te Papa, with Otago Museum would tie into that? Because that's something they do really well, and part of the money we pay is for them to give advice. It feels like that would be a natural fit for them to do it at a cost that's not $26,000 for consultants' fees. We've got another museum in our district that runs school programs really well. It feels like we're kind of almost creating two tiers of museums. ODMI have asked for a 46% of their total operating budget. Cromwell have asked for 60%, but we're also covering their staff costs. And it feels a little bit like they're asking for money for some nice to haves, which are nice to have, and it would be really good to be able to provide the volunteers with some recognition of their volunteer efforts, because they will be substantial efforts. But then we have another organisation that's heavily reliant on volunteers that we have been told time and time again are stretched so far beyond thin. And I think that maybe there is a conversation to be had around, well, Cromwell has been given a significant advantage by us bringing their staff member in-house. Maybe we do need to have some consideration given to that. I think the Tevia and the Maniatoto one are quite easy because they're not big asks. But when we're talking about bringing in consultants and paying volunteers, those are quite different things from surviving to provide a community ability.
Is there also a question saying if they don't get funded to do that now and it doesn't happen now, will it happen later under the new setup?
Quite possibly.
Is the timing
Yeah.
essential, I guess?
Yeah. I can't answer those questions.
No,
Not
It's for discussion if people have got thoughts in one particular direction.
And I kind of agree as well, like on one hand, paying volunteers to tax and stuff, and I appreciate it's a big job, but on the other hand, ADMI, they run on volunteers.
So is Tevia and
Yeah.
so is
Yeah.
Early Settlers.
Yeah.
Is that what they're going to use that money for? I'm trying to find it so I can read it and get my head around it.
That's what Martin
That's
spoke
what they
to.
told us.
I know he told us, but where is it in the application? Is where I'm trying to find it.
So currently the funding to pack everything up and move it is associated with this application.
Yeah.
We haven't, at this point in time, haven't funded that from within the range
Operations.
of the new facility.
I would have thought was the logical place for it to come from, intuitively.
I know, it's not there. I mean, we could find it, but it's not there.
So it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, isn't it?
This,
Well, there's $1.6 million has been secured to set up the new museum.
Yeah.
Surely $12,000 of that could
That's
be
what
set
I'm saying,
aside
is
to
that-
transport it from A to B,
Yeah.
unless you see it otherwise.
An option.
Do we have a team building day?
I'll let you guys decide that one.
Everybody brings their card in.
Everybody wear you. You're
I mean,
otherwise
the
you
art
move a
tax
box.
will need careful handling.
Yeah, it's not a free thing that needs to happen. So that if it's not allocated through this, it needs to be allocated.
somewhere.
Yeah, it needs to be funded somewhere.
I can't help but think that if I were in the museum, I was saying, we don't need to do this. We are not going to be here in terms of setting up the museum. The councillor said they're doing that. Volunteers will still support the operations or whatever in some way, shape or form to be determined. Actually getting that collection in there, it's
It also had to put up shelving, and that seems like it would be strange that the museum would be the ones putting up the shelving.
in the scheme of things, if that $12,000 goes into the capital cost, that's where it belongs.
Yeah.
Not an O&M cost.
And I generally speaking, it is a lot cheaper for a trust to do an activity than it is for a council to do an activity.
Not so the trust can't still do it.
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that at all. I'm
The
just
museum
saying if
trust
you,
might say to the council, we'll do this and you pay us.
Yeah, yeah.
For a donation. We get done cheaper and it's best use of the ratepayer money.
What's being done is the shift of the collection from the existing museum to the new museum. So a storage element. Talked about using the
Not all
existing,
the artifacts are going across.
Some's got storage.
so there's some existing outside storage now.
Yep.
There's. I don't know,
So Martin said there are 3 current storage facilities.
And they're going to be moved.
Storage.
So those three, the contents of those 3 containers will be moved to where they currently exist, which means you won't now be paying for the leases of the storage at the,
Has that decision been made?
That decision hasn't been made yet. So currently as it stands is some of their collection is in an off-site storage.
yeah,
And then when they move out of that building will be vacant for a period of time. But I think they've been using these storage facilities for a much longer period of time. They've had them for years, so.
the existing museum and the more storage seems like a nutty idea to me.
so that's only short.
Isn't it our
It's
collection?
only a short term.
Yes.
Isn't this our collection? So why don't we own what we own and do what we should do as the owner? It seems, the more I say it, the more it makes sense,
Mhm.
is that someone else is actually running our museum for us at the moment. Probably that's the way it's set up. So,
Well, not anymore because we've got her in-house.
but so it's coming in-house. So you say, my logic would say to Cromwell Museum, well, your application is reduced by the amount that's related to that transfer to that new location. It's not on you guys. Do what you're doing until that happens. And
that'll come out of a capital.
yeah, it's got to, that's the right place for it.
And then
And then when we talk about the consultancy fees of $26,000 to build a school at this point in time.
Well, the question of that to me is saying, is that appropriate for now, or is that something that's appropriate for the new setup going forward? That's the decision of this table saying, going forward, should we do that when it becomes us doing it? Volunteer support, I'm sure still. We then do it through then and take that off the volunteers. We know what the structure of the museum operation is going to be going forward yet. Exactly.
Not fully yet. No.
Yeah. So
It's a
I'd be more tempted to say, in terms of the grant at the moment, saying this much, yes, this stuff here sits there until we've determined what we're doing with that. That doesn't get allocated.
That's pretty much the whole.
That's the whole grant,
That's the whole
effectively.
grant.
That's where it is now.
$12,000 plus the 26 is what they stipulated it was for, consultant fees and the volunteer. And I would be very loath to be giving money that's coming from our ratepayers currently to pay people who are currently volunteering their time. I don't think that as much as it's nice to acknowledge volunteers, I don't think that's what our ratepayers would want to see.
I agree.
That's anyway.
It's not fair on other community groups that volunteer their time. And I like Tamer's idea of tapping into Otago and seeing if we can figure something out in that education piece through.
I think that's beyond the scope of, I mean, we give Otago Museum $34,000. I think over the course of this past year, they have been outstanding in their support for our local museums. I think to ask them to design an education program for a specific one of our museums is quite an extra burden.
But
it might not be
saying that as well, surely there would be an opportunity for them to say, well, yes, we'd be happy to share our education templates or program work with you for a cost that is not $26,000. Our museums need to start working better together.
Which is why we've set up the Central Otago
knowledge.
Museum Trust.
It's not actually about designing a new one. It's actually, isn't it? Wouldn't it be more like copying or kind of, or adjusting what they've got to suit us up here? So really you just,
Well,
Rejigging what they do.
No, I don't. I think you design an education program for the space that you have. It's not about,
it's not copy and paste.
it's
and
not
change the
copy and
artifacts.
paste. Yeah.
Proposing. Sorry.
I am concerned that at the moment you're sounding like you're giving a Cromwell Museum a 0, which is an awkward position.
They've specified what they're asking for, and we're sitting here thinking we're not sure that actually fits with what we think the purpose of the grant is at this point in time.
So I'd say it's all right to be awkward, but there needs to be a conversation with them to actually make sure we fully understand exactly the implications, so it's well understood, because we could make the decision to say it's 0.
And then
They go back, but hang on, you didn't know about or didn't think about X, Y, Z, and then we'd look silly. So I think my logic would say you defer that part of it at this stage, subject to further conversations as to what's been talked about today. And so that, you know, the museum can, if there's something we're missing, and there could be, because Martin's not here to tell us, we don't know, that would be my only worry.
Or Jennifer, who's our employee.
Well, exactly. So I'd be happy to go, it's pending further consultation to confirm that the logic is right. The logic we're talking about is right. It's saying, well, actually, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So why would it give you anything?
Can I add a couple of things? So the moving part, there are 2 parts to it. They're proposing volunteers, and there's the other part, which is around trucks and shipping artifacts and all of that kind of stuff, which does come at a cost that is part of this application that sits here. So I think maybe part of the conversation is acknowledging, if you want that to be CapEx and funded through us somehow, to make note of that too, just so that's not forgotten.
Yep.
I think it probably needs to sit on whether you want left on the table, that aspect.
No.
Really, because it's not.
I mean,
That's the challenge, is that the applicant has spoken to that part of the application and said that it is to provide a monetary contribution to volunteers, not to pay for trucks to ferry the goods.
As part of it, I mean, they spoke to 2 things. You've got the full application and supporting documents in front of you.
it's easy to say back to them and say, decline today, subject to you clarifying X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Then it comes back as another report to the next council.
So that we will handle internally the cost of moving. So then they know, so they no longer need that.
I think you have that conversation about all those aspects, to say, actually, let's nail this down.
Yeah.
So we know exactly what's going to happen.
He's saying in terms of
I'm,
a new, sorry,
sorry.
a new council, that if we don't make a decision to vote money today, we'll cancel.
Just in relation to that particular project.
I'm also
Okay.
concerned, so the Cromwell Museum Trust has traditionally been funded through an MOU with the Cromwell Community Board and has been paid on 1 July. And so and it is now September, which they were able to cope with cash flow wise, but now we're getting very close to the pointy end of that ability to cope. So we've already asked them to delay July, August at they're 3 months later than they normally would. You will recall when we did that to other entities that we considered a hardship grant to get them through that period. These guys, I mean, it's a transition period, right? And we are working with them
I think back up a wee bit, just on the staff person, it is a 1 year transition to help us with the project. As far as future costs in that staff, we haven't locked anything in just yet. We're working through that. But I think just being conscious that this is a transition year with a project that's taking off, they're doing the best with what they can to work around us. I think is what this application is about. And so I think, to Rebecca's point, we'll be a lot clearer from July next year when we do have our operations down. Remember, we've only really just started working on this about 3 months ago. So I think just having in the back of your mind that this is a transition year, and this time that we're in now, the trust is doing the best they can with what they have to work with us too. And that does come at an operational cost this year as well. Yes.
It does say continuation of funding for normal operational costs of the current museum during the transition phase, but it doesn't stipulate what those costs are. The stipulated costs is giving
but
money.
the budget's in there. The budget's in the supporting documents.
Yeah, but
I'm looking at it now and I'm not seeing
me.
it.
Budget's not helping me.
They've got total expenses of $68,584. I can't tell you what page number that's on your side.
It's on 303 and 304.
And the operating expenses, so the cost of running the facility is listed there. 304.
Yeah, it's just, we're working closely together, right?
Yeah, and they've still got the building costs and stuff this year. They're still operating that museum.
The museum's still open.
It's money, but they've asked for the wrong thing.
Give them 25% of it. They can't pay the wage part of it. So what does it cost out in the budget? Half.
There's no remuneration. So all they've got in the last part of the year, $10,000 for remuneration.
He said 12K in the meeting and in his this morning, he said, volunteers, it's 12K.
Probably that's 10 plus 2 is the other 2's professional services, I suspect. I gut feel.
Yeah, they still have accounting charge. There's still a trust that they've got to operate.
They've got an administrator, they've got.
And I'm happy to give them something, but I think we need to stipulate that it is for overheads for normal operations, not for giving to volunteers or hiring consultants. And I see they have applied to another trust for money to contribute to. Play.
Be a way to do it. So just deciding how much. So that's a good way to do it.
15 grand off, 12 for your wages and consultant or a consultant. 20,000 off it.
The 21.6.
316, and then do you take 2 for into Teviot, so get that 4 from that pot? Or Neil, do you want to take it from?
I thought you were doing it, you were giving them the opportunity to represent, so
So Teviot,
no, Cromwell.
yeah,
You, I thought earlier you were suggesting that they need to come back and put their case better.
Well, I think as you've highlighted, there are figures there
yeah.
that are things that we would support, the things that they have asked for. And probably Martin didn't realise that that was something that would come up, but we understand they still have overheads to operate until they move. And those are the things that we have previously funded alongside their staff member, which is now in-house. But actually, those are the things that we're talking about funding, not paying volunteers or hiring consultants.
So the $24,000 in professional services and staff remuneration shown in their budget. Now, and the end of the financial year. I think what I'm hearing is that seems to be somehow related to the professional services and volunteer assistance to move the collection. Is that what Martin told us?
No, do we represent, we just say we're declining this, we're declining that, but we
Pay for that.
please present the case for what you need to operate for the end of the financial year.
The only problem right now will be, are they technically a going concern?
That's right.
They might now be insolvent because we're funding.
We don't know that, do we?
That's,
I mean, they have overheads there that are tagged to things that I think they're quite comfortable with funding, like the computer costs, the bank fees, the cleaner, the FPOS rental, all of those things that require them to operate a business.
Yep.
Not talking about consultancy fees. And I see a lot of that as professional services that doesn't start until
January next year.
January next year. Hey, we're not funding that. But things like rubbish and waste disposal for $150 a
December.
month, sure. I think we can quite easily stipulate what the money is to go towards, because we do that with a number of other grants.
So we took out 14,000 for professional service, which starts in December, 10,000 for staff remuneration, that's 24,000. Comes off the 41, leaves you 17-ish. And what was that 17 for?
so I just, yes, the application is for continuation of funding for normal operational costs of the current museum during its transition phase to the new museum. For the first time, this includes provision of a grant for a limited number of our volunteers who have been tasked with packing up. But the application is for operational expenses, which includes what they wanted to do. So am I hearing that you want to, if we try this 21.6, but give them the opportunity to come back about
Should we approve the 21.6 to make sure they
have got
Yeah.
still function?
Yeah.
They're still going to be able to
Yeah.
function
Yeah.
and make a case to come back through the community board and.
yeah, or do they come as a grant, community grant?
Well, the first thing is what would happen is that David and you and the team between you will go and talk to them and say, right, where are we at here? Let's nail down what's going to happen with these relocation costs and those sort of things. And then work out what's left to apply for, if anything.
And that might be a conversation to have with them. We're talking about hiring a company or a consultancy to build a school program. Does that fit better within a community grant than a museum grant?
Yeah.
However, that still leaves you, so you then have the option, it's not freeing up 20K. Because are you giving them the option to come back and state their case for it?
Yeah,
Not through
absolutely,
this.
absolutely. Because we're saying we're not convinced what you want to do. Have we missed something here? That's what I think we're doing.
Yeah.
Is there something here that we haven't missed? And if someone, David, turned around and said, actually, those relocation costs can't be met for anywhere else but here.
Yeah.
Good luck.
We can't pay volunteers and the consultancy doesn't need to happen when you're going into the new setup.
And we keep them solvent to the end of June.
Keep them solvent till the function, till it runs into the new system. You can't have,
Round for museum grants. I could do two one.
There was-
Too many.
Could be,
we're in a
We're trying to get them all
transition
onto-
period. Cromwell's in a tricky spot.
It's because Cromwell's in transition.
Yeah.
But then we're also not able to give ADMI what they need.
no, it's not going to fix that problem.
Yeah.
And
So
next,
that is what it is now. I'm happy
Challenge.
with that. Going, that is what it is. We haven't got the budget, simple as that.
So my question is, if we didn't need to give, if Cromwell come back and we work out a way, we only actually need to give them the 21.6 and we did have 20 left in the budget, could we then look at giving that to ADMI?
Well, I think you could, but until it actually happens,
Yeah.
it's not. I don't think raising new hopes about things
Yeah.
until it happens.
So what are you resolving?
Let's have a look. Okay, so where are we taking?
Got
the
draft
2K for-
recommendations.
Taking the 2K for Teviot out of them. So is it coming out
I
of?
think it comes out of museums and
So
it
that's
the
the-
problem might miss out on
that comes out on-
going forward.
Okay. So we, 4K for Teviot. Looking at 8,300 for the Maniatoto. 82 for ADMI. And 21.6 for Cromwell Museum.
I think you need an additional resolution.
Operational costs.
Well, that's already part of the resolution. It says that 21.6 for Cromwell Museum Trust. Can you put it up, please, Wayne? For the 25-26 financial year towards operating costs. But I think you're asking for something else. And I think that needs to be clear. So you're saying,
we're not asking for something else,
Well,
but we're wanting to leave the door open for them to come back and say, actually,
We didn't-
our application was not full and complete and what we said we were asking for is actually not what we were asking for. So-
you've indicated that you're not supportive of money to pay volunteers.
Yeah.
And you've also indicated that you're not supportive of paying the trust for the move, for the to move the collection. So I think you need to put that in your resolution, that you're
Thanks.
declining.
How are we getting on, mate?
And so the money towards the education piece.
So
And
just,
so if you need to word that in a resolution so that that can be formally relayed back to the trust, please,
so just clarify, apply for 41,600
towards operating costs.
operating costs. And I've worked out that there's $24,000 that seem to be professional services and remuneration. So that leaves 17 of what they asked for that we'd be granting them. That stack up what he told
No,
us.
sorry, say that again, Neil.
Well, in their budget,
Yep.
there's $24,000 of remuneration and professional services.
I don't think we can make a judgment there. They've got a person they pay to do run the meetings. So you're making assumptions,
That's what I'm asking you the question.
but I'm not, I'm
And
not the
does that
trust.
line up with how they split the application? Because this thing doesn't tell me that number. Martin said it, I didn't write it down.
He said
Martin
12K for
said
volunteers.
12K for volunteers and the 26 for the consultancy for the school program.
That's 38.
But
That doesn't, that's
that's
not adding
not the
up.
same as the budget.
That's the bit that's not adding up.
Yeah, we've got to get those.
And I just don't want you to assume that all that remuneration figure, because they have got a legitimate cost in terms of their,
Well, it's not an assumption. The $2,000 for professional service doesn't start until December. There's nothing in the budget before then. And the $10,000 remuneration is only in June next year.
Which would be,
It's indicative of not an ongoing cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Already
and
part of
I'd imagine the ongoing costs possibly come under things like, so where is it? Well, I don't know. It's really hard when he gives us some figures that aren't supported by anything in writing.
Which is not your fault.
No,
yeah.
I think you could put approves a grant with, you said? If you come to 21.
I'm taking 24 off, so I've got 17 and one something, isn't it?
I mean, this is an extraordinary position for that trust to be in, as they're working with the Central Otago District Council to move into a facility that we are then taking over. Yeah, I think we've got to cut them some slack.
Be the cost to council to move the collection.
Well,
Sit
We
with
just
David.
removal costs and sits with me. We'll just go through our process, but that can just be taken out. The 21.6 that you've got there, just looking at the numbers that I have, some of the professional services are their accountancy as their secretary and things
Yeah.
like that. And then your 21.6 would cover their basis of operational power, if cost, bank fees, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what I've worked through looking at numbers here. Maybe a resolution in there that council would cover the removal.
yeah, I think you put that in the resolution.
Approves the-
I can't agree because the professional services don't start till December, $2,000 a month.
That's not accountants. Accountants have a
That's,
separate.
that's something new. That's,
If we give them a grant, they know we're not going to fund that, we're not going to fund this. Your grant of X. If it's too much, it's not going away. It'll used by council at the museum trust the next year, whatever the new system is. But if we overdo it, actually math, it'll disappear. So I'd favour.
that's just another pluck from the sky, sorry.
Yeah, we'll ask him to come back and.
Right.
Okay, so
Do you want to have approves a grant of $21,600 to the Cromwell Museum Trust in the 2025-26 financial year towards fixed overheads?
say excluding,
I don't need to say excluding, but I think we need to have a line in there around, I'm just not sure how we would bring them back with the opportunity to come back to explain.
Yeah, approves towards fixed overheads. Notes the request for financial support for relocation costs and agrees to consider that as part of operational budgets.
Yep. Yeah, as part of budgets.
Yep.
Budgets for
And so that's one part. And then notes the request for support for an education program. And requests this come back as a separate application.
Why do you need an education program when you're actually probably shifting out of one facility to
Well,
another one?
they can say that in the new
When-
application.
They need to
Actually-
come back and explain that.
Because you're in the transition of one of the most tricky spots we're going into. Let it happen and then formulate the plan afterwards when you know the actual cost of shift and everything else.
So agrees to, and if Wayne agrees to consider this.
Forget about the education bit and all that other.
It's just, what we're just trying to do now, Stu, is provide a formal resolution that we can give to the board, the museum trust, sorry, that they can then come back to us and either explain and you will agree or disagree on its merits when they can speak to it themselves.
And I think you can then have that conversation about whether a separate application for a education program fits within a different, because we are aware that there is some money in it
That's right.
and it may well fit in that.
And it could even be the Cromwell, though they've spent all their money.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that one's not quite as time sensitive as keeping the lights on.
that's
and
what I
the bins
think.
empty.
Yeah. So then therefore that leaves you the money, wriggle room.
Of which $2,000 will go to.
Will go to Tim, yeah. And then and it leaves you, I've not got.
it must be about 18,000.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
If we've taken 20 off and we've given 2, I reckon it's 18.
Are you doing the maths?
Let me do a little spreadsheet.
No, I'm not doing the numbers, but man, all those ones.
Right, for the sake of getting caught up on a very small amount of money,
It's just very.
Do we want to give any consideration? The only one we haven't discussed at the moment is ADMIs.
We give them the 18.
There are different options.
Open the door though for Alec Cromwell to
come back.
come back.
No, but
In some way, shape or form.
Yes, I agree.
So I think you'd be.
Can't give the money away if we.
Then you actually then just say, oh, and by the way, the door's closed anyway, there's no budget left.
community grant budget.
Yeah, and if I may too, the community boards are actually, they've got quite a lot of reserves now as a result of the wash up. So the community boards could recommend to council at a later date. It's still the council's decision.
I think Cromwell's got a grant reserve, but they've certainly got other reserves.
I don't think.
Come out of the big bucket. no problem.
We spend our money with.
Is there an enthusiasm to leave, say, 10,000 in there, recognising that something may come back that fits within this bucket? And then the other 8 going to ADMI,
Yep.
around
Should be
about
saying,
90.
what are you going to give ADMI by giving them extra? What's it? Is it for something? Or is it not for something? I'd say.
ADMI have made a very strong case that they're underfunded for operational expenses. In addition, so they're, I think, and they've requested an additional 10 from memory for a specific piece of work. So they've asked for 130, of which 10 is an allocation to develop a 20-year vision.
Do we give them 10 of that 18 for that specific purpose? Because we know that this is going to keep coming. This is the challenges with ADMI and the service that they provide has come every year. My time on council.
Developing a strategic vision. The Museum Trust do.
I was going to say, why are they doing that? Why isn't the trust doing that?
Because the trust is about the whole, ADMI, so there's 2 trusts here. There's a trust there's a Central Otago Museums Trust, which is about the sector as a whole and how it works together as a whole. ADMI's purpose is to run ADMI, Central Stories. And in that role, they want to figure out how, given all these, what we have, given the environment that we're in, what is the best way forward?
Future councils have got a problem with distributing museums, and now you've got a heritage trust that's being second guessed by every museum. This doesn't make sense.
There's a lot of challenges with that. I think that a strategic direction for ADMI is probably actually something that's very important for them to undertake. This isn't going to go away, and it's not like they're declining and figuring out how they save themselves. It's actually growing in use and services, and probably some strategy around what that looks like into the future and how they maintain something that's, maybe a little bit more of a work of an oily rag smell than continually burning it. The smell of a smell, the memory of a smell of.
That's fine, but then what do you need a trust for?
Yeah, doesn't the trust need to have some oversight or some involvement in that going forward?
I think it's
What are they there for?
Well, I think it is separate. That's about the cohesion of all of the museums as opposed to one specific area.
To be able to pick it up.
I think that they have to do it, but there needs to be a connection somewhere to say there's a bigger district-wide strategy at stake here. It's not just necessarily ADMI.
Well, ADMI,
ADMI, but somewhere you need a conversation about the role of the trust.
Yeah. And there will be a report coming to the board, to the council about the Central Otago Museums Trust later in the financial year.
Are we happy then to add?
Yeah, so then my question is, if boards have got reserves, do we need to hold 8 back here?
Well, it's not necessarily the boards with the reserves, but there is some money that wasn't allocated this morning that we don't anticipate anybody else calling for. That I think possibly does fit within community aspect.
Can we do that to a new council when that it may be?
Well, they make their own decisions, so you can.
The real risk of the new council has changed a lot of things we're talking about right now.
It's not a council.
Yes.
It's a real risk.
Spending an awful lot of time on this. Huh?
Yeah. Should wrap it up. Right.
Well-
Tamer?
I think that with the money that's set aside and the direction that we can give to Cromwell Museum, that $10,000 for ADMI to actually have a strategic direction and some forward planning is probably money well spent. We own that building. We need something to be successful in there.
So we're thinking not up to 92.
I guess 82 grant And the 10 is tagged, the 10's tagged.
Yeah, so approves, yeah, $10,000 to,
Additional $10,000.
Yeah, so, yes, yeah, so it'll be up to 90, it'll be 90.
Oh, they get 92, but
Yeah.
it's got to be clear that there's 92 to go
Yeah.
to whatever, but
Yeah,
10
but
and
10's
10,
Yeah.
let's go to that.
Additional,
and allocates
Please.
additional.
What's everything?
Yes, yeah.
Let's go up.
They don't sustain CPI, Joe. This isn't okay.
Not even later. $10,000 in the 25-26 financial year. Yeah. And towards strategic.
Take it out after the 20, after we hit it. It's the strategic,
Oh, sorry, 20-year vision.
the 20-year vision.
Isn't it lucky that the minister told us that museums are a core role?
That's right. Right. And I would note that, I said in my opening comments that this is an ongoing piece of work. We're not there yet.
Nowhere near.
Cromwell Museum will have settled a little, hopefully by this time next year. It gives us a little bit more space, and we can keep developing our thinking about what is the role of the trust, the Central Otago Museums Trust, all of those things we can continue to work on.
It's going to be unsettled till Cromwell gets sorted out. It's not just going to be next year. It'll be 18 months after that till it all irons out, and then we have a decent look.
Big Pollyanna.
So Wayne, we've got,
Showing to, she says.
If we don't get it right, cost escalation, the other councils will start taking the knife out. We've got to be careful.
Yes, Alex?
The regiment,
And 10.
Yep.
From 21,600.
Yep.
That other bit.
Yeah, with
Oh,
the vote that they come back,
Yeah.
that will support them with the capital.
everyone happy with that resolution? I'm happy to bring A to G. Seconder, Tamer, thanks.
Go and give it to Nigel.
Question the word fixed overheads.
That's what they've called it in their budget.
Okay, so I'll move it, Tamer will second it, all those in favour? Right, sorry.
Sorry, Wayne, can we just add Cromwell Museum to F? Just to, doesn't change the substance, it's just making it just
That's not specific.
Much, thanks.
Thanks.
That was a big one. Thank I know, it's gone out the window.
All right, can I hand over to Stu?
No, we're not.
Have you got one more?
Yeah,
No, yeah.
haven't finished yet.
Alpha Street.
Sorry.
Won't be long on this one. 25.18.9, we have Zelda Gareth for the request of the Minister of Conservation's consent on over Alpha Street Recreation Reserve. Take it away.
So this is just under your delegated authority to give ministers consent for the easements grant over the Alpha Street Recreation Reserve. Its purpose is to facilitate the water supply upgrades that's been done there and the new bore that's been installed there. The first will be a recommendation based regarding easement on the northern part of the reserve. And that's for the underground cables for Aurora. And then recommendation C is for a water pipe line that was indicated on figure 3, going on the eastern boundary of the reserve. And the recommendation D is for cover, that's called the borehead building. That's just to cover the above ground borehead pipes. The example we've provided is just an indication of what it would look like in the end. So example 1 is not necessarily what it's going to look like. Or I believe they're going to cover the sides with wood, similar to the example 2 below. So just requesting your authority for that, please.
Question?
Make the observation, figure 3 are really horrible to read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Figure 2 is not much better. Figure 1 is equally as bad.
Just.
It's important that we can see the notes on them, and that's probably something that.
Well, there's level of detail there. I go, I can't ask questions. I can't read it.
Okay, so any other questions?
I have got a question. So the power cable is going to come down the northern boundary of the Alpha Street Reserve. And then it's going to carry on to all of the, is there a transformer? Yes. Yeah. Where?
You can tell us.
I know, that's what I'm asking him.
Are they being transformed in the MCC building?
So the power supply is coming all the way down and then going all the way to the MCC building
Yeah,
and then coming back for bores and stuff.
yeah, across to the bores, yeah.
The location of the MCC building was the most cost effective in terms of the power cabling. That's why it is where it is.
That route through the park is also the most cost effective one.
I've got no issues with the route at all, we're so but at a disadvantage trying to read things because of the quality of the figures.
Those writings are from the plan, so they're not really notes on it for the reference really, they're just taken.
They give context about exactly what it is, they provide explanations, so they're quite helpful. You can read them.
So any other questions? Okay, for recommendation, we've got A, B, C, D, and E. Could I have someone move that? Neil and Nigel seconding it. All those in favour? And it's carried. It's me.
Shelley.
I know, sorry.
That ranges.
5.18.10 road stopping, Fruitlands, Roxburgh Road, Roxburgh.
This road stopping is, as the figure 1 indicates, basically the unformed road going right through the middle of the applicant's land, splitting it in half. I should have probably done an aerial photograph as well, just to show you the farmland and the orchards are going across the road at the moment. So it's just legalising that occupation. We recommend that this is done in terms of the Local Government Act 1974, as the request is to close the whole width and length of that paper road, unformed road. There is alternative access through Coal Creek Road and Craig Road to Mount Hope Road to the west. So just recommending that the approval is granted for this road stopping to go ahead, please.
Questions? Been the Tiwi Community Board.
Yes, and they're
Would someone like to recommend
Yep.
recommendations A, B, and C? Kelly, second it.
Yep.
Okay.
Neil, those in favour?
All right.
It's carried. Thank you very
Yep.
much. Proposed benefit changes. Holly, can it be?
Soon.
Yeah, no. Oh, Neil.
While QP is doing the delivery, I'll make a next start. So as agreed at the 25th of June council meeting, public consultation on proposed speed limits ran from the 27th of June to the 10th of August. The survey included 53 proposed changes in 19 areas. 129 submissions were received and most proposals were supported and remain unchanged from the original draft alternative method proposal. 3 proposals offered 60 or 80 kilometre per hour options. Speed reductions were supported for all 3. Multi-point road, 80 kilometres an hour was preferred and 60 kilometres an hour was preferred for the Bannockburn area and Clark Road. We recommend these proceed as per the updated alternative method proposal attached to this report. Some speed limits did receive mixed feedback and those are outlined in the handout there. The first one is Clyde. So overall results were 50-50. But that was mainly due to lower support from Mutton Town Road, which generated a lot of comment. So viewed individually, each limit received majority support. Sunderland Street and Hospital Road received 63 and 73% support respectively. Mutton Town Road was lower with 55%. So several respondents suggested that 70 kilometres per hour for the less developed area of Mutton Town Road was more appropriate. We did consider this, however, we recommend proceeding with the 50 kilometres due to planned residential development, and there are current subdivision applications for that. This will ensure long-term consistency, safety, and it avoids repeat consultation because we can't use this one again.
And one of those consented developments is right at the
State highway
in the far end, so it's expected to come on quite quickly.
So Racecourse Road and Omakau was closed too. 51% opposed, 49 were in favour. Some wanted a graded approach, so 70 kilometres heading into the 50, and others felt that the area wasn't built up enough for the reduction. But we just want to give a bit more context to that one. A variable school speed limit was introduced in January 2025 under the new rule. And at the time, we realised that the new signs imply the speed limit is actually 100 kilometres an hour outside of the school operating hours, rather than the 50 kilometres it actually is. And there's no compliance sign that actually resolves this issue. So a speed limit change needs to occur to fix this problem, but to reflect the feedback, we recommend shortening the 50k zone to 155 metres instead of the 250 metres that was originally proposed. This allows for safe deceleration, and we'll be able to install electronic signs which are clearer for road users as well compared to the static signs. Oturahua was 56% opposed. However, I note that the Oturahua community group made a single combined submission supporting the change. We do note that the current 70 kilometre per hour is compliant under the rule, and there is a footpath present on one side of the road. However, lower speeds are recognised as providing better safety outcomes. We have shown the 50 in our recommendation. St Bathans was supported overall with 55% in favour. I do need to acknowledge a typo in the report. I note that St Bathans Area Community Association also made a combined submission supporting a speed reduction in principle, but they raised concerns about heritage values and confusion due to multiple speed zones, specifically the 40 leading into the 30. So based on the road geometry, district plan heritage designation and improved safety and consistency, we reflected on that and recommend extending the 30 kilometre zone to where the 40 was up there, and we'll install early warning signs around the corner. No changes to the 60 kilometre approaches at the other end are proposed. The last one is Cambrians, which was 64% opposed. However, the St Bathans Area Community Association supported the reduction here too as a combined submission. So the feedback generally indicates that a drop from 100 to 30 seems a bit drastic. And some people did support different speeds ranging from anywhere from 40 up to about 70. We acknowledge that that change does look significant on paper, but the road does not meet geometry requirements for a high-speed environment, and 100 kilometres an hour is misleading for unfamiliar drivers, and it is a tourist area. There is clearly a concern there about speed as well, because locals have put up unofficial 40 kilometre signs at the end of the road. During the planning stage before consultation, we spoke to the NZTA, and they advised that the road fits a low speed classification under the new rule that only allows a range from 10 kilometres an hour to 30. So we can't do the 40 to 70. So due to this, our technical recommendation is to proceed with the 30 kilometre per hour speed limit. Do you have any questions about our recommendations?
Questions? I've got one regarding Oturahua. We've had quite a lot of feedback from residents that as it is fine. It's such a long run in and out. So I would suggest it stays the same, and Because it's quite a long lead in really, and there's no school there, they hardly use the pool and so that's one thing that's been brought up, maybe not brought up in people in submission, but it has by the locals that I've been dealing with, so. I'd like to recommend that stays the same.
And that does meet the current rule, and it doesn't have to be an existing speed limit. But just of note is that 70 lead and 50 piece that is there is actually compliant with the rule because of the footpath on one side. The reason it was included in consultation was community feedback around asking that to be put up for consultation, and it has come back that 50% have actually opposed that. But again, the community group did make a single submission, so that's where it's for a matter for the table to work through that and decide. But on the basis of it, the 70-50 does actually meet the requirements of the new speed rule as well.
And I did talk to one of the ladies who submitted in St. Bathans, but after being there for a fire the other day, and vehicles moved there, they're quick enough, so 30 is probably instantly fine, and a lot of people walking down there and Cambrian. Well, like you say, you can't drive up anyway, and they're taking the law to themselves, so they might as well make it legal and keep what they want. So, any other questions? You want to ask questions?
Clarify something that is that looking in particular on the page 340, where it makes the observation in relation to Murray Point Road, Bannockburn Road, Jocelyn Road, Schoolhouse Road, and Clark Road, that the preferred for each location was. Did we get comments on all of those, or just some of them? I can't find that. And the reason is because Clark Road I know pretty well, but I can't find a comment about Clark Road anywhere.
That should be one of the appendix, whichever one it is. Of the comments have been included in the report as well.
So it's not an individual comment included in the report. There was not about it. However, there
definitely was.
I did a search on Clark and couldn't find it. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Okay. Could be.
All I'm worried about is saying that we've said that they were supportive but I suppose supportive because there was no comment when support.
They were voted on as part of the.
So the way that the way that the survey was presented was that it had the map, and say Clark Road's different because there was only one road.
Yeah.
But if there was multiple roads, they could either go, I agree to all to save them ticking every box. But if they didn't agree, it would give them a secondary option to independently comment. Clark Road had, do you agree with reducing the speed, yes or no? If they said yes, it then went to the secondary question, which was, which one do you prefer, 60 or 80?
I can't see that in here.
So on page 275.
Had you told me how to get there, because I thought searching by Clark would get me there.
No,
it's under
that's
Morris location 1. So page.
It's not listed as Clark Road. Moorings.
It's in
Location 1.
Right, so it's picked up by that.
Yep.
Right, you can see why I was confused.
And they are only considering that road as part of location 1. So 46 in support, 19 against. And then of that, around the 60 versus 80, 24 in support of 60, 22 in support of 60.
Sorry, there's just so many papers in the appendix to try and find and wade through it. I'll just search on Clark. Related but not necessarily relevant is that I look at Clark Road at 60 on a gravel road, which can be quite an interesting gravel road sometimes, towards sealed roads in similar areas. What's the rationale for the difference? So I would have thought sealed roads might be faster. I love it.
Yes.
So looking at Labour Valley Road, 60 Ks. That used to mention about footpaths. So just interested to hear that, does that have some bearing if there's a footpath that leads to a lower limit?
So there are specific rules. There's now a table which specifies what speed ranges that each type of road can operate under. Anything that was done prior to that wasn't sort of.
Yeah, no, just more just trying to get go 60K gravel road, but Carfield Road.
So an unsealed rural road can go down to 60.
Yep.
And if it's sealed, it can go down to 80 if it's rural. So there's those ranges.
So speed limits done in the past may not have actually comply with the new rule.
So Labour Valley at 60 Ks may actually not comply with the new rules.
Yes, but it doesn't have to change.
Right, that's cool.
But that section of Labour Valley with the status under the district plan and everything may actually comply.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, okay, gotcha.
Or is likely to comply, but rural sealed road would not comply.
Understand.
60.
You-
Prince Burn College.
Questions? Clement?
One, can you just clarify, because maybe picked up by some, there's a bit where it talks about speed limits around schools, none proposed, but we do have some on the radar. Can you cover off the state highway ones and where we're at with those?
Yes, so they're not proposed under this particular alternative method proposal. And we have been speaking with the NZTA. We had a meeting last week, just trying to get a bit of buy-in. We've set forward some maps of what we want our signage to look like. But essentially we won't be putting forward that alternative method proposal until they have come to the party essentially and told us what they're doing. So we make sure everything lines up. There is a deadline for that, but we don't need to consult on school speed limits. So that one's less urgent and why it's not led under this particular one.
And with the deadline being quite a long way away, did you feel like there was any buy-in or traction made from your meeting last week? Because I'm still getting emails about.
It does sound like they've got consultants involved to actually start making some process on it. So it is promising.
We're continuing to push our piece and going, hey, this is what we want ours to look like. Come on. Because we hear it from the schools as well. And we would love to see them change. We'd love to see them done when we did ours. Because it's, I admit it's not a great look having some with and some without. And but unfortunately our hands at the side would prioritise them like we did ours if we could.
We will continue to keep advocating on all channels for our schools to be prioritised.
I will just sort of add that one of them, we haven't talked about it today, but is it Terrace, which has the 3 roads? I can't remember the name of the Munro and things. That was actually a preemptive thing for the Terrace school because that was going to have the same issue that Omakau had. So that was part of the reason for that. So we did think about the schools and part of this, but they weren't specific to the.
Questions? So
Parking didn't come up. No one took the opportunity to talk about parking through the survey. Surely someone had a crack.
No, I don't believe there was any comments with regards to parking, and by all means that process is I guess depends how you look at it, but been a success as well with a lot less complaints and public calls with regards to parking on footpath and everything like that as well. And obviously we're 8 weeks into issuing of infringements.
And people are getting them and paying them.
Yes, we are averaging probably about $1,000 a week in infringements, and again, not much feedback around that, and yeah, obviously people coming and paying them, and
majority in Cromwell.
I would consider that's the only place that any enforcement's being done at the moment.
We're just
We're coming your way shortly.
law abiding it. Well, they can come to Ramford as an interest about parking.
it ranges from, I think it's $20 or low tens or high tens, $20 right up to $750 in parking in a mobility park.
Parking in there.
We have had a number through the education piece and everything like that. I don't have the exact numbers if we've actually issued any of those, but we did have a number through the education piece, and hopefully that was a good reminder and a good education piece not to use those without the permit.
We actually had a thing at the Tibet Valley Community Board meeting last week. Out the back of the hall, there's actually a wheelchair park there, and someone made a comment that someone was parked in it, but you can actually hardly see it. And so if we're going to fine people $750, I think we need to have really good, clear parks that you know that you shouldn't be parked in.
We were listening, and a service request is in, and we're getting that remarked as well. But again, part of the as well, the wider work we're doing around parking and making sure all of those are compliant, appropriately signed, as well as the investigation we're doing around that for what it looks like in Alex.
And the infringement fees, just to finish it off, the infringement fees for parking laws are not set by us.
No.
They are nationally set by regulation by the Ministry of Transport or someone like LT. Yeah. So we don't actually control it. But we do get to keep the revenue.
Yes.
Don't tell the government.
Any more questions or statements?
So thank you. That was a question.
Oh, no, I'm not just saying also, it's your last turn, you let we go. We're fair and open around here, no discussion.
Just for clarification, is the decision to leave Aotearoa as it currently sits and request we make an adjustment to
I'm
our
just going to say that to Wayne,
Change.
stuff.
On site.
A and B.
Yeah.
And B, C becomes, leave it to her the same, and then C becomes D. Does that look, Wayne? Leave it to her as it is. Receive the report. Is in turn of. With the exception of Terry Hill staying in the status quo. The authorised rating department seek approval. Something like that, right?
I'll ask one more question.
Sure, you asked one more question, yeah.
From what we did the last time,
Very similar.
big changes, nothing really. Hannibal Road, Pearson Road, Sandpit Road.
That all received positive support for that change and then reduced speed. Yeah.
So if but nothing else, there was some positive stuff that come out of having to do this again because people got to start to the chance to understand what was proposed last time they reacted to, and now
I think there was some confusion we did receive through the feedback because there was mixed messaging from the central government around the change in the rule and everything. I think we got cleaner set of
Guidelines. Could have got there.
Yep, that's, approval with the proposal, with the exception of Boatearoa.
Okay, can someone move that? Jared, second that? Oh, Nigel. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against, carry.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Southern Water done well.
At one
not you.
So,
Yeah, this is item number 25.18.12, Southern State.
Yeah. Well, hold on, everyone. So you've had a chance to read this. This is just an update to where we are now. Closes out the budget. This is the cost. So you'll see that it probably cost each council about $55,000 and GST on top of that. Would have been about 63 perhaps. The government actually funded a large chunk of the work you did on the Southern Water Downline. So going forward, there's three councils, obviously. We are the administrating authority for it, which means that we pay the costs associated with the contractors and that sort of stuff. And actually we engage them as well as we move forward. It's in a little bit of a hiatus at the moment, pending the elections. But there are things that we are able to get on with. So we are now in the market recruiting a program director to head up the team to lead this transition. At the same time, we are confirming the sort of skills matrix and that sort of stuff we need to select a establishment board chair, which would be a decision for the next meetings, post the elections and that sort of stuff. So there's a few things we are getting on with them. So it is a lot of work that has to be done. It won't all happen by the 1st of July 2027, because we have a sort of in our mind what we need to be able to do on day one for the water services entity when it stands up. And there'll be a period beyond that where it'll still continue to transition. And you'll see there's an indicative budget anywhere between $1.4 to $8 million for the cost of this transition. And that transition will be debt funded. Actually, we will raise the debt and we'll get a cheaper rate for it because of our credit rating. And then that will be used to establish the transition, to build the team, establish all the establishment costs, and on transfer of assets, that update that will transfer across to the services entity. There's a lot of work to be done between now and July 27. We haven't yet heard back from the Department of Internal Affairs on our water services delivery plan. And to the best of my knowledge, no council has heard back. I suspect that's probably because of the local government elections. So I suspect post the elections, we'll hear from the minister and the DIA as to, you know, who councils have had their plans approved, which councils need to go back and give them a rethink. Yeah, so generally, we are still pushing ahead, but we're just sort of conscious of where we are in the election cycle.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, I just got one in relation to, given what happened last time when we went down a path of new waters that it was called back then, a whole lot of people were appointed and they had to be paid out. We're talking about appointing a program director. Build some safeguards in the event that central government do something that only central government can do.
Well, I mean, that's right. There's always that risk, isn't there? Mr. Hipkins has said that they're not going to roll this one over. They're going to stay with, because there's been so much disruption. So if you take them at face value, then
I guess if you have done it in good faith and then government do change, there's a real case to go back and say, you set us up to fail once again. For example, we paid all the other bills in the first place, and we say, yes, but I want to do it anyway, but you must.
But I mean, we are conscious that people that are engaged will be on fixed term contracts. It might be that they 6 months through to the transition date or 12 months. So that, you know,
Short term stuff. So
yeah, short term stuff.
Yeah. Further down the track, the more entrenched it becomes, but just
Yeah.
mindful of that cost. It must
So
be huge to the country.
We'd hope to have establishment chair sometime in the first quarter of next year if it went plan, and a establishment chief executive probably in the first of July or thereabouts.
So I'm sure there'll be reports back to council about that process to get it signed off, because no one's got the authority to go and do it.
Yeah. So that is, we're only doing the research at this point in time for the establishment chair, and we have engaged a recruiting company, and they will come back to the new mayors and the alternates if that's forward.
Cool, thank you.
I've got just one request really, and that's I'm not quite sure whether how it fits in terms of timing, but I mean, if you think about the last 6 years, we've gone through 3 waters, you know, and then we've gone through now through local water done well. I'm just wondering about communication with the community. No, I think because this is actually going to be moving quite quickly, really. I wondered how anybody thought about getting the communication out there, other than just what we're doing here, and it ends up on what you know, central app or on our website. A lot of people don't read that, and if I look at the last 6 years and looking around the council here, if I'm interested in this because I've been listening to this for the last 6 years. If I'm not here, I don't know unless you tell me. So I'm wondering about, even if it's just sort of, you know.
So I mean, the first internal newsletter will go out in the next 24 hours to all staff across the 3 councils. We do have engaged, we've engaged a communications person to help us with this. So we are thinking about what's the external comms we need to do, and then what's the hosting page that we can set up that we can use as a way to put the relevant information out into the respective community. So we are certainly giving that some thought, and I would expect that post the confirmation of the mayors, that will be close to establishing some type of external outwards facing page of some description.
Would you not include going to print? So even if it's a monthly, you know,
Oh,
update,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. I mean,
bulletin or something, you know, this is what we achieved this month, this is what we expect to achieve next month, so that everybody is on the same page and there's no surprises for them when, you know, 2027 mid-year comes around, that they're going to have known, they've followed the path of it, or agree or disagree. It doesn't matter, they'll still know. And I wondered, the other thing is would this information come from the individual councils, or would it come from that main steering group?
It needs to come from the
So
centre,
the message is all the same at each council.
so it's consistent. But absolutely, the thinking is down that path, but we've got 3 people thinking about that right now. 4.
So no other questions, then the recommendation is that we receive the report. I have a mover and a seconder. Thanks, Tamer. Stu, all those in favour? Against? Carried.
Same, heading to page 372, please, use of reserves BCB. Welcome back.
I feel like I've been through the ringer.
You think, but it's you.
All right.
Some of them have only just woken up after.
Here we go, here we go.
You think that was bad? To the next round.
I got notes. I'm going to stick to my script. At its meeting held on the 8th of October, the Vincent Community Board considered 9 applications for community grants requesting a total of $76,951.14. They have $38,000 to distribute. The board has delegated authority to spend up into that limit. The board also has a $45,639 in its Vincent Community Board Reserves Grant Fund that can only be used for grants applications. The board considered the applications before it at the meeting and decided to seek permission from council to use $7,616 of that reserve amount to support its recommendations. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Just to confirm, there's money there that can only be used for this purpose. They're just asking for permission to do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move it.
Moved in second. Thank you, Sally and Neil. All those in favour?
I should have done this before music.
Yeah, you could have. See, that's how nice we are.
This is going to mean you're going to go away feeling much better.
You just go out to the late items, which is in the kind of separate agenda. We're talking use of reserves, money, toto, community grants. Welcome, Alan.
Here, everybody. Great to be here on your final day in this triennium. So for those that I get to see come back, it'll be exciting to see you back. And for those that are going to be doing something new, enjoy the next year.
Whether by choice or otherwise.
Why not see any of us back?
That's awesome. So like Rebecca, we've just had a funding round where Mani Toto Community Board considered a couple of applications to their promotions and events grant budget. They had 2 applications which totaled $2,219 above their current financial year budget. So they too are seeking your permission to access some of their reserves to allow them to fully fund those grants. One of which is for the very exciting news that came out yesterday that Naseby Dark Sky Community has achieved its status
World
of international Dark Sky Community. The first in the southern, first in New Zealand, third in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's pretty exciting for them.
10 years of
It's a
work,
10-year
wasn't it?
journey that this council's had a huge input into them achieving.
Incopo is not a community, it is a
Reserve.
reserve.
Again.
And community is actually
Really hard.
above that.
Yeah.
Not the first time that many Toto's led the way in a few of these things, so is it?
So you have reserves, sanctuaries, parks, lodges, which there's none in New Zealand, and community,
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
which is very
There's a hierarchy,
exciting.
there's a hierarchy of dark skies.
Yeah.
Okay. Who would have thought?
We are the
Who would have thought?
darkest you can get.
The darkest.
Succeed in the dark and succeed in the daylight round our corner.
Many a Toto one.
Dark day in the money.
Receive the report, set level significance, approve the recommendation from the Mani Toto community.
I'll second Stu's.
No,
I'll second
Stu
Stu's.
and Neil, thanks very much. All those
Once
in
again,
favour?
global leaders in our corner.
Carried.
We can't see you doing it.
Global leaders.
Right, back to your main council agenda. 76, please. Economic development strategy. Welcome, Mr. Lanham.
Cameras pick up it.
It does.
If we can't pick up it.
No, it's fine. I don't care.
busy table now, isn't it? Good. Hey, so the purpose of this report is to present the draft economic development strategy for approval by council to go out for community engagement. So the recommendations are that council receives the report and accepts the level of significance and approves the draft economic development strategy for community engagement. The last time we spoke about the strategy was in July last year, where I brought a paper to council that essentially outlined the need for a new strategy, i.e. the old strategy was expiring in 2024. It talked about the process that we would go through to get community engagement on the new strategy. It also covered off the opportunity that came from the newly minted district vision to align the strategy to that higher arching document there as well, and really defined what is economic development in terms of how we look at that and how that will feed into the scope of this new strategy. With that being, economic development is about lifting our community's standard of living through influencing economic growth in line with our values to provide employment, sufficient incomes, and the resources required to achieve a healthy standard of living and quality of life. So since then, we've been through community engagement. So we hosted 11 workshops across Central Otago. They had a mix of water focus and also industry focus, and they were held across 5 townships. We also had an online survey as well, which we received over 200 responses to that survey, which was pleasing. And we've also engaged with Mana Whenua and with Lokaha as well through this process. And what you see in the attachment, the draft strategy, is really the output of that community engagement. It includes the vision, which I'll read for you. Increased economic prosperity. A thriving Central Otago where increasing incomes, sustainable growth and shared prosperity are driven by innovation, investment and the adoption of new technologies. The strategy is for 10 years. The last strategy was 5 years. And the strategy has 4 key pillars: fostering sustainable growth and innovation, building thriving and inclusive communities. It came through, and that one sort of covers off the social infrastructure as well. Enabling connected and resilient infrastructure, partnership and collaboration. Each pillar contains projects, objectives, descriptions, talks about what council's role in it is, and the desired outcomes that we want to achieve there. And the strategy finally also includes an overarching target, and that's is to increase the average Central Otago wage income to the national average by 2035. But currently, the average wage income sits at, for Central Otago, sits at 85%. Compared to the national average. 10 years ago, we sat at 80%. Wage incomes are growing at a rate faster than the national average. So in another 10 years, by the end of this strategy, if all remains the same, we would sit about 90%. So this strategy is an ambitious target to say, well, can we get to the national average by the end of the strategy? And so that's is naturally intended to be ambitious, but be realistic, and something that we can hopefully, really explain to our community in terms of why we do economic development, what we're hoping to achieve through it. I think we're all conscious about the cost of living, affordability, how much of an issue that is for our community. And this is something that obviously economic development, I feel, can lean into. So that's sort of a high level sort of comments there. I guess next steps, with your approval, the strategy would go out for community engagement over a couple of months, and then bring back to council for formal adoption December. Things probably take a little bit longer, so probably January next year. And obviously I would also work my way throughout community boards to raise awareness or inform them of the draft strategy. And it could be good to perhaps discuss now whether, this council believes that at a November workshop it would be beneficial to go through the strategy in any more detail. I think that's Oh, and I guess, sorry, following the last point really is, well, so what, we sign off, how does it all sort of become operationalised from there? I would look to produce an annual work plan that would come to council for approval, and then be reported on at six monthly intervals.
Thank you, Nick. I know a huge amount of work has gone into this, and I think it is a really tangible document. That's a lofty goal, and I think it's an achievable goal, but it's going to take everybody working together and a community where you're being paid the same as the national average. We shouldn't be lagging behind. We are thriving. We should have businesses feeling like they can pay above and beyond what people are worth without it impacting their bottom line. So I really like that there are things that we can point to where people say, well, what is economic development? What is that even going to do to us? And we say, well, strategy, here's the objectives, here's the pillars, here's how it fits into our place in the world and what we're hoping to achieve with it. And I'm excited by the public getting an opportunity to look through this, because I think it's actually a benefit to read and understand, even if you don't know what economic development is currently.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. And yeah, a big driver is really around that increasing productivity. It's not saying, hey, we just need to pay people more. It's like, well, how do we become more productive so that businesses are more profitable and that some of those profits are shared with workers because they are producing more?
Challenge you that a lot of people in the community which I represent will be looking at this and saying that it's not what they thought it was when they all of a sudden found themselves negotiating on behalf of a community to fight against a solar farm. When you're taking values like respect and protect our natural environment, health resistant, picturesque, and run the risk, I suppose, we might be challenged along the way. The opposite has happened when you may get big business, no matter where it is and what it is, coming into the communities with different values than what we're trying to install. So I would imagine the feedback may be different in some of these regions where they have maybe gold mines, or they maybe have solar farms or wind farms, or, you know, dairy farming or massive development. So I guess it gives us a yardstick where we want to be, but maybe not taking the public with us.
Stuart, I wonder if.
Yeah, I'm going to add to it.
No, you might be adding to that.
I think before you respond, Nick, there's a counter to that, and that it's very easy to think that we are bound by one particular document that says one particular thing about outcomes, but it's not that simple. You know, this district also is quite encouraging on lots of different other things that have got it to where it is today, and energy is actually one of them. If you take a solar farm, for example, and even, do I say, probably mining to an extent as well. There's always going to be a balance somewhere on the line, and you're going to have, I think, competing, for want of a better word, legislation, because the RMA, particularly in the solar farm process, provides for certain outcomes. So there's always going to be a tension, and there will be something you look and say, but you can't deliver that. Well, the intention is to try. Other things might stop. That's how I look at the strategy and say, this is what you would ideally like to have happen. The reality is, other things might mean you can't get what you want.
Yeah, and I feel that the strategy does acknowledge that balance and that tension and that anchoring to that district vision, which is the community's aspirations of the district. But yeah, it's
and you know, living in a community where it's become divided because of a lot of the things we're all buying into, feeling they haven't been heard. But then exactly what Neil says is we're the process. And
Cheryl.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what impact do you think that the 52 hectares of industrial land Cromwell is going to have? I mean, if as that's developed, there'll be huge demand for that, which means businesses want to set up here. Surely that is going to create more economic development. I mean, it's going to be more people wanting to work here. And so I was just wondering if that it's going to have an impact on saying.
Absolutely, it will. No, that is economic growth, and that will bring with it jobs. And I would assume it will play into that overarching goal of raising the wages, or the average wage across the district. And that was, it was definitely that momentum did come through, in particular in that Cromwell workshop that we had, where they were saying, hey, this is great, this momentum, but what about the schools? What planning is happening with healthcare and things like that as well? So there was an acknowledgement that while you've got this, keep an eye on this as well. So
suppose the other thing is that be careful we don't just pick certain parts of development as part of economic development, because a lot of trees get planted. You know, we're going to see potentially some, you know, who knows, could be wind farms. And so the use of land in particular is a very subjective thing. And what it all has an economic return. And you can take the analogy that I've used before is that Lake Dunstan is actually it's just dry land with water stored on it. It's an effective use of land for an economic good.
But then that also then links into the spatial plan. I mean, it's all interconnected.
And this strategy, the most important thing is this strategy actually recognises all those things and says, but where we want to go is here. And along the way, there's going to be some roadblocks or some barriers or whatever.
Trade-offs.
Yeah,
We trade along the way.
And I guess a lot of the land we're talking about is freehold land.
Yep.
And people in business, whatever they want to do, have the right of choice to be in freehold land, which they do, as long as it falls under the district plan rules.
What used to be dry land has now got pivots and it's very green.
Exactly.
Does it make it right? It is what it is.
Any final questions or comments?
Any thoughts on whether or not there'd be appetite, interest, or you think it's a good idea for a November workshop on the council on the strategy more detail? But or if you've got a certain degree of comfort and understanding, then
I think in the environment we're in at the moment, and it's definitely muddly everywhere. I think if we're seen as a council to be pushing a big view at economic development over the future to see where it lands and falls, not just in housing. And so we may have potential airports, we may have potential gold mines, we may have potential, carbon trading, where you might have trees coming into areas like, look at South Otago. And I think people want to really, if they're thinking about selling out and shifting here, they really want to see a 25-year view of what the environment's going to look like. Because it will be a lot more houses, we know that, and maybe a lot more vehicles, but is it I think when people make their decision to invest or move on or whatever they want to do, they see where it's going to be for the next generation. And just snippets of it, because it looks pretty exciting when we sit, but we see a lot more information than the ratepayer.
There'll be at least 3 new people at this table, and I don't think there is going to be such a thing as them having too much information as a council.
And every chance,
I think it's worth bringing.
every chance 2 of them be younger.
So receive the report.
You may think it's, I know there'll be 3 more.
And I pretty much know they'll be younger.
Approve the draft economic development strategy for community engagement. I'm happy to move it. Someone happy to second that?
Why not?
Cheryl. Sorry, Neil.
That's right.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carries. Thank
you
you
very
very much.
Still got no respect, has anyone?
I just
2.5 Cromwell
one
Memorial
thing I'm just stating.
/ event centre / big building by the lake.
Maybe we quite so loud about it.
Transparency and openness is a big feature of this council. Just stating fact.
Hey,
Good afternoon. So we've had a very busy month of doing lots of tours. Saw a couple of your faces around there. Canada's tour. There's a lot of things happening at the hall at the moment. Bex was all excited the other day because the first piece of joinery went into the RSA room. We're moving and shaking quite a bit. There's going to be a big transformation on the outside of the building. So the scaffolding is going to start coming down. And of course, the clad reveal is going to be, quite pronounced. They're also starting to work on some of the landscaping around the edges as well. So you're going to start seeing some outside transformations. Next couple of weeks, the bird cage inside the auditorium comes down, and I think you'll be able to we'll definitely have some more tours and be able to get in there and actually see the grandeur of what that auditorium is going to be looking like. So we are still tracking on budget, on time. And you can see there's a couple of photographs in there with the clad reveal and the scaffolding coming down. Any questions?
I was one of those lucky people to go around the other day. I thought it was amazing. And what a facility it'll be when it's finished. And in 10 years' time, we'll say, how did they ever think they've been so good and making such a good job of it? Great to go cruise around. Tracy and I talked about a lot. It was from outside the area, going in there to see what it looks like. It's spectacular. And I know that the ratepayers and time when they do visit it, all think they've got something special.
I think that's one of the things that we talk about with comms, do a better job of is share all the people that have been through, because we're doing sort of
about 3 tours a week now, aren't we? And we've had daycare go through. We're looking at bringing all the schools through. RSA, I guess all many key stakeholders as we can have been through. We've had the museum trust, I think they're going through next week. So the team are very busy being tour guides.
I'd just like to add as well, we have had developers sniffing around the edges and also getting a tour or two. Let Dylan tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah, I won't go into much detail because obviously there's some commercial sensitivity, but we've been, we brought through a potential hotel developer last week who's looking at Cromwell. So off the back of conversations we've been having with other potential developers. So the town's getting interested and I guess confidence came from the conversations we had last week was point the potential hotel developer was making was if council was investing at this level in this facility, this would give us confidence to be investing in this town. So big kudos to the decision made.
It's pretty exciting.
Like to
Any other questions? And we'd just like you to carry on coming back saying on time, on budget. Yeah, better be one.
Under budget, Gareth.
So if I got under budget, then I don't know what I'm doing in my job. So I reckon on budget's perfect.
Favourite idea.
Keep reminding him, Stu.
I do know the response to the questions about contingency and how that's been used.
Yep.
So that's useful. And I didn't pick it up at the community board meeting. I thought I was looking at a report that I already seen at the previous council meeting, but it's amazing how the pictures sort of make you think that's what I've seen because I had seen it recently. So yeah. I think that's helpful going forward. And, you know, you look at it and you go from the outside in and go, oh, they're big numbers, you know, how could it have been that? But when you hear what it is that has to happen, you look at the big picture and things, it becomes quite a small amount. And you took it back to building a house and said, well, that was my contingency, my house, I'd be actually, wouldn't be unhappy. So, yeah. I know that the team's trying to work very hard. I got to say, Naylor Love, from a community aspect, they couldn't be doing better. Yeah. So goddamn proud of what they're doing. Yeah. What they're doing in the community and with their staff. They just, a lot of employers should take a look at leaf out of their book. Not saying others don't do it, but it's really good when someone like that comes to town, especially when you go there and see the diverse diversity of the workforce. Yeah. They're all working away and doing stuff, and you just and proud of what they're doing. And but you know, love team, I think they're doing a really good job. That doesn't mean that you charge us more either. But
I'll follow on from that. I thought the skill of the job, just walking around and watching framing and everything, that was magnificent.
Yeah,
all the detail, you know, from an unqualified point of view, but it was very tidy, works on it, and I think craftsmanship very good.
I was concerned that Bex wouldn't give me a tape measure so I could work out that joinery was actually like that. It just didn't look like it was going to take pull up the cap. She wouldn't let me have a tape measure.
Just eye it up now. Yeah.
Very much.
Cool.
Wonderful to hear. The recommendation is that the report be received. Yes. Thank you, Neil and Stu. For those in favour. Aye.
Thank you.
Guys,
Now
we are getting into something very exciting that we have been hoping for a little while and working towards, and I've no doubt that our community are going to be thrilled to hear all about our key risks report.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're so excited because I think risk is very exciting, but not
good job you do.
Sentiment.
The first risk will be not having.
Key risk is not. I'll sleep through the report.
It's out of bounds.
Take us away, Amelia.
Key risk is it wakes up.
As alluded to several months ago, it was requested that we bring the key risk report to the public forum. So we went away and worked on something and then took that to the Audit and Risk Committee earlier this month to check that they were happy with what we were going to present in a public forum, and that got the okay. So this is the very first public risk report. So what we have is our entire key risk register, which includes 16 risks, and they are broken down by residual risk rating. So we do have 2 very high risks currently, and that goes down, and we've got 2 low and no very low. So our majority of our risks are sitting at medium, which isn't terrible because these are the biggest risks that we face. So the 2 top risks that are sitting at very
are our financial sustainability and affordability risk and our three waters management risk. And as we know, those two are very closely linked. And obviously big focuses for the table at present. So obviously we've just been through a long-term plan and both of those were a key focus of that. And we're moving now into the planning for the next long-term plan. No break, straight in. And what we're trying to understand as we go through that planning is how that financial sustainability and affordability risk can be well mitigated as that three waters risk actually moves out of council and morphs into something else. Because whilst we won't be the entity providing water services, there will still be some residual risk that remains, obviously, because that is going to be a council controlled organisation. So the next 2 years, as we move through that process, we'll see those risks kind of changing and adapting to that new environment. What we've tried to show in the appendix are the drivers for these key risks. So actually what is pushing up those residual risk ratings and where it's something that we can address versus actually we're kind of a little bit stuck with a lot of these because they are very much externally driven risks. So again, whilst we try to mitigate as best we can, sometimes it's just not possible for us to reduce those ratings any further. And that's when we get into discussions about just accepting that and continuing to mitigate and control as best we can to keep those risks from increasing any further, but acknowledging that we probably can't reduce our risk exposure. Are there any questions about any of the risks in particular?
Affordability, financial sustainability, they're driven by the ratepayers' section of affordability and the actual risks to the business that we run. Is that, am I right there? Like you're never going to be able to balance those if you want to be cheaper.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So affordability is subjective.
Yeah.
What might be affordable for one person won't be affordable for another. So we do try and kind of have the lens of knowing that not everyone's going to agree with what is affordable. But one of the drivers for that risk that we've included is that actually the community fed back through the last LTP consultation that they were willing to pay continue the level of service that we currently provide. And obviously that might not be a sentiment that's shared by the whole community, but that was the majority of the feedback that we got. So obviously we'll continue in the next LTP consultation to try and dive down into that. But that gives us a sense that the majority of the community that responded to that consultation did feel like it was affordable for them to continue with the level of service that we kept rather than reducing and saving some
Well,
money.
the risk is that we reduce the level of service and keep the rates the same. That's the risk.
Yes,
and
that's
the
one of the, yeah.
High risk, but arguing to that, our job is to have both.
And then there's the longer term risk where if we don't invest now,
Yeah.
actually we're just pushing that affordability issue down the track.
So to me, I don't see that as very high risk. I see that as business as usual, but the ratepayer sees it as a risk.
It's really great to have this here in black and white and red and yellow and green. Because often we do hear, well, are you thinking about this? Are you thinking about that? Yes, we are. We're thinking about all of these things. We're thinking about the climate. We're thinking about critical supply failure, which happens. We're thinking about potential claims. We're thinking about attracting and retaining staff. And all of these are risks for council. It's not just a matter of, is there going to be someone with a shovel that can fix a pothole? It's a lot more sits in behind it. So I'm hopeful that people will want to have a look through this and be across it, and it will be coming back again and again.
It certainly will. Every quarter there will be an updated one. So obviously happy to bring this on a monthly basis as well, but it will stay static because obviously we only update every quarter.
I'm waiting to move the recommendation, but I want to change it.
Okay, what are you wanting to change it?
Well, this says we receive it, and it's occurred to me that we should be not just receiving something, we actually should be noting it, or at least something more than receiving it. I might be wrong, but just occurs to me that saying actually we didn't just receive the damn thing, we actually noted what was in it. And that's what we just did. We had a conversation about certain things. I don't know if there's a protocol around that or not, and I'm just being picky. I don't know.
It's just, you can make that amendment.
Report be received and acknowledged the contents or noted the
The
contents.
contents noted, too, because otherwise it's a bit, often trouble me just receive the report. Well, that's, you know. just
Mean we
got-
did nothing,
yeah,
we
nothing.
discussed it,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
The
So I'll move
report be
that.
received and contents noted.
Yeah.
There
There
you
you
go.
go.
Would you like to
And I'm
move
sure
that?
you might see that more times in the future.
We quite possibly will.
I'll set a trend, eh?
Who would like to second it?
Oh, well.
Thanks,
It's
Stu.
got such a
All those in favour?
statement.
I
Like
The way of the future, Stuart.
Carried. Thank you very much, Amelia.
Way of the
Great.
future, mate.
It's
Thank
great
you,
to have
Simon.
chair in the public setting.
You left us with a clear direction.
Right, we're going to skip on through and do a few more so that we can try and get a little bit further back to where we need to be in our timeline, unless anybody urgently needs a break right at the second.
No.
No, perfect.
Feels
436,
motivated.
review of the non-audited annual report. Welcome.
Nice reports that early, didn't we?
So I take the report as being read. So this is the draft annual report for 24-25 financial year. At present, we currently have the auditors on site doing their audit, so there will be changes to this document. And we are still expecting our audit opinion to be signed off before the statutory deadline of 31st of October. This draft has already been past the Audit and Risk Committee, and we have made adjustments based on their suggestions. We are also still making financial adjustments where they arise, where they are significant in nature. So overall, the council had an overall operating surplus of $7.9 million. This is slightly below the $8.1 million that was outlined in the annual plan. And I will just go briefly over these. There is more detail in the actual report that gives you some more information. And of course, in the annual report document itself. So subsidies, grants, development and financial contributions and interest revenue were behind budget. Fees and charges and other income were actually higher than planned. For operating expenditure, personnel costs and other expenses were higher than budget, with the personnel costs being funded through reserves and also being offset by increased income. With the other expenses being due to increased audit fees and professional services along with maintenance costs. So a total of $50.6 million was spent on capital projects during the year. This is lower than the annual plan budgets of $69.4 million, with an unspent portion of $18.8 million. The remaining budgets have been reviewed and are actually in the next paper for your recommendation. For the statement of financial position, the current assets have decreased by an overall $4.2 million, with a reduction in cash and cash equivalents. So this is driven as we're using internal cash flows before uplifting any external debt. Current liabilities have increased by $10.6 million. This is mainly due to the classification of the external borrowings being different to the annual plan. And non-current liabilities have increased by $7.6 million. So the overall total external borrowing stood at $50 million for the end of the financial year, which is $38.5 million less than the planned $8.8 million in the annual plan. The overall result is a net asset position of $1.2 billion. This is slightly less due to the decrease in capital expenditure, planned capital expenditure. However, that has actually been offset by asset revaluation gains of $63.4 million. For the performance measures, out of a total of 72 performance measures set by the council, 47 measures have 65% overall, And this is a slight increase of 1% from the previous years. Areas of improvement include water, wastewater planning, regulatory, community development, and property and community facilities. Are there any questions?
Assuming in those areas where we've had overspends, lots of personnel costs, that there's been a corresponding overspend budget approval done for all that sort of stuff, or that lost in the weeds, for the want of a better word.
It's sort of lost in the weeds a little bit. However, there has been income that has offset the ones which weren't done through forecasts. The ones done through forecast were actually put through in the revised budget, where you have made decisions to use reserves for those.
Does that pick up, like the income would be income from an external source? So like, yeah, so a lot of the income that's come in is from an external force, then I guess Freedom Waters, some local water, Southern Water done well would be part of that sort of.
Yes, where there's external grant funding to
Coming in,
offset
yeah.
the expenditure. The other one being the swim school fees being higher with the cost of the instructors.
Thank you. And I heard you say about we had a gain because of asset revaluation, but that's effectively just a numbers transaction, not affecting the cash position or the what ratepayers fund, which, let's be honest, it's a financial turmoil over there that to Joe Public says, I'm just worried about how much I'm paying.
Yes, but it does.
And then I was just going to say, the only thing it does affect is future deprecation.
Yeah, which, and then, so there goes the hang up of that, is saying actually, because your assets now are revalued, they are now worth more, they're going to cost more to replace.
Yep, that's right.
If you were funding the depreciation, then guess what? Rates just went up. Yep. And I guess that's a key thing that somewhere along the line, and I'm sure there'll be some comment in the actual annual final report by someone, who people at the top of the table, that'll say that actually that's what happens, and that's what's driving some of these costs. And that's why things like the rate of inflation is not happening, because those costs are not to do with the rate of inflation. They are the actual cost of having to be able to replace those assets as they wear out. And I think there is a total lack of understanding out there about how that process works.
But we've also grown for $200 million in the last 2 or 3 years. I've been running around telling people their net assets about $1 billion. Now it's 1.2 billion.
Good development, because there'll be a lot of invested assets come in.
Depreciation will never catch up on that.
No.
And I guess that's the challenge, is that people say, council open the books. Here they are. Here is our statement of financial position on page 441 of the agenda, and it's accompanied by line, what money comes in, what money goes out, what it's spent on, what we said we were going to achieve, what we've actually achieved, where we've not achieved it, why we've not achieved it. All of that will go through to the auditors for them to make their comment on, and that will come back to the new council.
Hiding in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight, yes, for those with the time and the inclination.
But yeah, but difficult to understand if you don't have the time and inclination to get down into the weeds. We spend a lot of our time.
So I'm happy to move that we receive the report and accept the level of significance, approves for audit the draft annual report. Let's take out some of those for audits. Approves the draft 2024 to 25 annual report for audit. Recommends to the incoming council the draft annual report 2024 to 25 for their consideration at the adoption of the audited annual report 2025 prior to 31st of October 2025.
What the hell's that actually saying?
Is a legislative.
I wonder if it needs to be there.
Well, yes, it does, because what the new council will be relying on you having looked at it and approving it, because they will come in and
when they adopted the final version,
they will be
have reference to this one. Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's why that's there.
I can second all that now. I understand it. That's been the way you read it out.
There's a lot of annual, yeah. I'm just wondering if in C we can keep that slightly.
I've got it in the end. Or there, so say to the new council, consider this one here when you adopt the audited annual report prior to 31 October. So it actually does make sense, but it's
convoluted.
Yeah.
But yes, Neil has seconded that. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, and you will remain here for carry forwards, please, from page 619.
please.
You will.
Please, yeah, this moment.
Take it away.
So for discussion are the carry forwards from 24-25 financial year and forecast changes for the 25-26 financial year. These changes will be created in the revised budgets for 25-26, which will be reported as part of the monthly financial reports to council. So the total forecast revenue budget for 25-26 is going to be 109 million compared to the LTP budget of 107 million, increasing expected income by 2.2 million. The total forecast operating expenditure is 85.9 million compared to the 85.3 million in the LTP, increasing by $661,000. The capital carry forwards requested from 24-25 to 25-26 total 19.4 million, with a reduction in the 25-26 LTP budgets of $2 million. So this will overall increase the capital budget by 17.4 million. And this will increase the LTP capital budget from 75.1 million to a revised capital budget of 92.6 million. A significant portion of the carry forwards are in the Three Waters area, and an additional breakdown has been provided on these projects to give you more information as to the expected timing of those. Reading them, they do all say that they're expected to be done within the 25-26 year. Also, what is not included in this report is we have done a little bit of a rejig with our salary capex offset, and we're trying to bring it back to align with GAAP, or generally accepted accounting practices, where we recognise the net impact of the staff cost against personnel, and then the remaining portion is actually recognised against other expenses to recognise an overhead portion of our staff's time. So the overall impact is nil on the expenditure. It will just show a little bit differently through the higher personnel costs and lower other expenses coming through in future financial reports. But again, there is no impact on the bottom line, and just a reclassification between the accounting classes, for lack of words. So what this means is there will be a net increase in salaries by 1.3, and it will mean a decrease in other expenses of $1.3 million. So that will show in the first report to council for this financial year, and we'll be making adjustments to the annual plan 26-27 when we put that one live.
Just to note that that is to bring it in line with generally accepted accounting principles, as opposed to paying people $1 million extra.
Yes.
Yes.
And it doesn't show through the movements in this report because they are net movements, and we're only looking at high level overall expenditure movements and the overall revenue.
No, that's pretty much it.
Recognising that you are not in charge of all of the departments, what are the chances of us actually achieving $92 million worth of CapEx in the coming year, which has already begun?
So this year it was what, 74% was where it landed. That's on a revised budget, which was higher than the previous year. Equally too, we are spending a lot more. I mean, the last 2 years, the capital spent for this council has been significant. Obviously, the Royal Hall is the standout, isn't it? But Three Waters is not far behind, and as Julie was talking to before, you know, it's like we use Warfields as an example. There's a big project, and that's part of the papers that came today around the easement. You know, there were issues why that was delayed, and so that, and these are legitimate reasons that just mean that you start 3 or 4 months later. That has a knock-on impact. There might be weather events. We had to negotiate or discuss community, certain things, placement of some of the facilities. And, you know, so all that compounds. And I think New Zealand's track record shows that infrastructure is complicated here. I think our resource consent process is part of the reason. The regulatory environment we operate in when we build as well. So there's a multitude of reasons. I'd like to think with a lot of the work that's been done, and Julie said she'd probably back me up, QP can be talked at from the roading perspective as well. But actually we're reasonably well advanced now to push play on a lot of these capital projects, particularly in the water space. Because they've got a really solid team in place, we've got new contractors in place. So I'm confident that we will outperform where we were this year. But it's a valid point. All 90 million. I thought if we could get to 80, I'd be pretty delighted. If we could achieve all 90, if the stars aligned, that'd be fantastic.
Look, I think we work on the 3-year cycle for the NZTA funding. So if it's not completed in this financial year, it absolutely will be done by 30 June the following year, because that's when the funding for those projects that we have in place.
That's a really good point, because most of our projects span financial years. And so, which means, if we haven't quite attributed the funds to be expensed in that year in those appropriate times, then we will carry out, because all our water projects span financial year. It's not quite as neat and tidy as doing it all in the financial year.
The questions?
Yeah, I've got it, just because I can't work it out, so they've explained to me. Looking at the pools in Appendix 1. Shows that the forecast versus the annual plan shows $477,787 reduction overall, or increase. I'm just trying to work out how it actually translates through.
Operating revenue's gone up 497.
So it's an increase in revenue, so it's an increase to the surplus.
So we've got almost $500,000 of revenue coming in that we didn't budget for.
Yes, so there's some, we identified at the beginning of the forecast process that some of the budgets in the LTP were put in those positive numbers where they needed to be recognised as negative numbers to recognise them as income. So the accounting equation kind of got a little bit missed in the LTP. So that equates for, I think, about 200,000. Which does state in there. So the second line in the commentary says 207 revenue was incorrectly entered as a negative income rather than positive income. And so we've fixed that. Then there's also actually just some general increases in the expected, like swim school income and admission fees, which weren't.
So those increases, or if you like reductions, what impact does that flow to actually the rates that have been collected then?
So that will mean that there'll be an increase in the surplus of external revenue, so over and above the rates. So the rates could
if you impact back to saying we didn't overrate.
We may have overrated, but the outcome of a swimming pool, you actually don't know what it is at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's not. So I guess what I'd say, we may have overrated, but it's not material. And in a place like a swimming pool,
the adjustments will be reflected in next year's.
Yeah, well, and probably the pools are likely to be in a deficit anyway. So if you did overrate, it's not going to be
It'd be great to think that we could start clawing back some of that deficit by teaching more people to swim, which we're clearly doing. So that's really good news.
Just the negative part just threw me. I was trying to do a negative to a positive. My brain got
negatives in the.
Late in the day though.
Two negatives to make a positive. Just remember that.
Go.
Times. Wonderful. Any other questions? Recommendations: receives the report, accepts the level of significance, authorises the carry forward to complete 2024-25 capital projects, and the additional 25-26 capital projects revised budget appendix 1 in the report, which is attached. It arises the revised operating budgets, including carry forwards as per appendix 1. Do we need to note the reforecasting that will occur, or are you happy that?
Once it's accepted, we'll get through the motions and it'll be available for the first report to council when we do the first quarter.
The reforecasting is done though in appendix 1, isn't it? In terms of the net effect,
Yes, the net effect, yep.
but detail line by line.
To the next council in the next financial year.
Thank you.
I'm happy to move those. Sally's happy to second it. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. We now move into the guideline agenda, the other one, for deficit reserves.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am going to take the report as read. I have presented to you all and then presented to each of the community boards their particular parts. So this has been well circulated. So look, I'm happy to take any questions on the report or the presentations if you.
Just in regard to transferring from the Tibet Valley Walkway Committee back to the reserves, we actually have a walkway committee set up in the Tibet and we're actively doing up trails and planting and things. So I wasn't really assuming that if we didn't spend that reserve that we had, that it would get put back into the main pot. And I think I kind of considered it the same as the Millers Flat Recreation Reserve Committee, we've already kept that reserve.
And so the funding that has gone into the Tibet Walkway Committee was collected from funded depreciation, which kind of went there sort of incorrectly. And so this is sort of to move it back into the general reserves pot. It has been sitting there for a couple of years and was available for the Parks Department to pick up to list with walkways for the committee, if that's what they so choose to do. But this is just kind of to help tidy that one up. With the Millers Flat Recreation Reserve Committee, I understand that there's been discussions as part of the rejuvenation of that area, that funding is available if required to do work on the tennis courts and along with the warm-up, I believe was there.
So I guess an answer to your question, councillor, if the council's decided they wanted to leave money in the walkway, they could do that. My suggestion would be then that would be funded from the general reserve because it needs to, we're using that to balance off another reserve. So we would just switch those around if that was something the council had in mind to do.
In effect, this puts into place the distritisation discussion. It ends that quite complicated process of loaning from one account to another, from one ward to another, and back and forward, and interest being charged and interest being gathered, and hopefully will make the finances, I guess, a lot easier to read and understand going forward.
Yeah, it effectively gives us, this is a clean slate starting position with districtisation kicking in on the 1st of July of this year. And it does tidy up decisions from within community boards that the financial impact stays within the community board reserve area. So there's nothing that's asking the district to contribute to fix up these deficit balances. I might say that it was touch and go actually to balance off Vincent's. That was reasonably tricky. And I think that reserves that are left still will sit with the community boards to make recommendations from. Obviously, the council now has control ultimately of what comes out of those reserves, but it does earmark, reserves can only be used for the purposes that they were created for. So for argument's sake, the walkway, if that can be used for walkway purposes at a ward level until it's used up, and then it has to come through the district. So it just tidies it up. I would have thought that that was effectively a mistake made in terms of something being depreciated that shouldn't have gone there. Then the proper thing to do is to correct it. Not as though it was money that was budgeted for. It's an incorrect treatment of depreciation that should have gone somewhere else. I think I heard Donna say, so I would have thought that's the logic for fixing it. Leave it there because it's thereby a mistake. It wouldn't make sense to me.
Wasn't carry not how they call it mistake.
No, I think that clarity. No matter what, if they ever want to do any work on that, so they go through the process of being funded. Even if it sits in that account, it's still got to go through a process of being funded. That's the outcome, I would have thought. You've got $22,000 to depreciate for your tracking. It almost sounds like a real. It's a few park beaches. I don't know what depreciation, where that came from. Let's also tidy up the internal loans, and that might be something we want to talk to a little bit. As I've said in the past, there are some transactions that we created to reflect money transferring from one reserve to another within a ward. We call that an internal loan. That's not really an internal loan. That's just transferring money from one reserve to another and then expecting the ratepayers to repay that over time. There have been transfers from one community board to another with the expectation that the receiving community board would rate its ratepayers and then pay that back across to the lending community board. So what we've done here is we have reversed the loans effectively. So the lending community board has all of its money put back, and the receiving community board has to deal with the deficit that's created through its own reserves. So we've done that, and I think from you would have heard this, there are 6 transactions that fit that category. So we've reversed all of those. 3 of them go back to the district. One will be an external loan for waters. So we'll borrow money externally for that because that will obviously be shipped out on 1 July 2027. And the other 2 sit with Cromwell. So the Cromwell's got its money back into its reserve. And you can see, I think you asked for that, Neil, the movement. So you can see where we started from, what the movements are and where we're ending up.
The tables are really clear, broken down for each ward. And I guess that highlights how this council had remained debt-free for so long, is because there was such a complicated process going on in the background of borrowing from one piggy bank to pay off another, which is then getting lost in the process, which is then not clear as to where the costs are actually falling because money's been moved about. And it's all going back to the greater community, but it makes it really difficult to pinpoint things that are actually have been generating large deficits like pools over a long time without the ability to actually highlight them as issues and amend that. And I think to get back to that clean slate process whereby we don't all owe Cromwell money is probably quite a nice place.
The other thing too, though, is to balance the books, balance it internally within the ward. So I look at Teviot as an example and say, well, there's some deficits. So they fund them somewhere. Because the question would be saying, is it appropriate to fund some of those deficits from that walkway committee money, given how it got there? And the answer I would have thought would be yes. Right thing to do. Doesn't mean that there's walkways aren't going to get funded in the future. It just fixes a.
And I wasn't actually aware that that was.
Yeah. Well,
and it's also correct a misnomer. A misnomer was we never had debt. We didn't technically have debt. We had internal loans.
Yeah.
And that was effectively debt.
We didn't have net debt. We had internal debt, but not net debt. Is that the right way of putting it?
And what effectively happened when we started the construction of the Memorial Hall, which said that there was 22 million in the reserve. The cash that backed that 22 million had been put around, and that's why we then had to start borrowing externally to reflect that. So yes, technically we didn't have any external debt, but we had internal debt between the various governing bodies. So this kind of fixes all that up as well. So we won't be, we'll be trying not to use it. Well, there won't be any purpose for internal loans going forward, because it should be, we're either going to have to fund it out of debt, or we will have cash backing for it and be able to fund it out of the cash that relates to that reserve.
Gift to be able to give the incoming council and community boards a clean slate without this really complicated process to get your head around the various pots and internal debts and internal loans and what bears interest and what doesn't. I think they'll hopefully be set up to succeed. Recommendations A to G. Receiving the report and then authorising the write-off of internal loans detailed in the table below. Recognising that as these loans are within a governing body, there is no impact upon that governing body. Then have the community board authorisations and the internal loan. Somebody happy to move that? Thank you, Sally. Seconded. Sarah, is there any further discussion on that?
Fine.
Those in favour? No, those against? Carried. Thank you very much. I know that has been a really substantial piece of work, so
Yeah.
appreciate it. Let's stay there.
Thank you.
Right, service request survey and resident survey results. Welcome.
I have permission to stand up here as opposed to putting it in the table. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. End of the day, I noticed you guys didn't have your, I know, it's near the end of the day.
Bless you, guys.
Had your break, so have a lolly and shut up.
Can you give me a chocolate?
This is a celebration, lolly. Parenting 101.
Celebration.
Careful,
I
they start
like
giving
it.
the books.
Those men give me all that.
You like to say you chew it and shut up.
Here.
And you're not got the chocolate ones.
No,
This one's even better. Thank you, Dee.
watching the budget, you know.
Don't worry about that.
Well, you just fix that.
Crum will probably pay.
Oh, fruit layout.
Same as everything else. Lane, have you got the,
Here, there's something.
for the,
I've opened it for weeks.
fiddly on the end? I had to test them first to make sure they were good. So, you know. It's an ability test. So, but what I'm talking about today is the resident survey and the service request survey, both of which you guys have seen the results to. So this isn't about, wow, here's something new that you haven't seen. So we're just going to go through the highlights of those results. And then there's just a few slides at the end where we're going to do a little bit of a wrap up of engagement that we've had over the year that most of you have been involved in. And kind of look at what we've been doing and celebrate some of the results that we've got this year. The results are good, folks. They're good. So the service request survey is a survey that we send out only to people who've actually done a service request. So it's not open to the general public. It's only people who have experience in that. So these results are they're really good. 90% of people asked who had experience with a service request says they're really and courteous, fast and efficient, dealt with issue effectively, and then pretty small number, 17% experienced problems. So yeah, I think that's something to celebrate. The resident survey, the overall satisfaction that we got from that was 82%. We did have a lower response rate this year, but just I jotted a couple of numbers down this morning that aren't on the slide, but I thought they were relevant because we had a bit of a low response. If you can switch to the next slide.
I just stick there. We had a bit of a low response this year at 195 people. So last year we had 455 people respond to the resident survey. So we had a bit of a drop. The overall satisfaction last year was 79%. And this year was 82. But we got a little bit of a pushback. Some of you may have seen in the media and on social media also that we really shouldn't celebrate that 82% because it was such a low number and there was a 7-point margin of error, which is substantial, which I accept. But just historically, to give it a little bit of context, in 2022, we had 183 respondents with a 77% satisfaction rate. In 2023, we had 440 respondents with an 80% satisfaction rate. 2024, we had 79% satisfaction with 455 respondents. And then this year, 195 respondents with 82%. What that tells me is the numbers are pretty static. They're not all over the place, you know, depending on the number of respondents. So we always want more people to respond because that definitely makes the numbers more accurate. But when you look over the years, it hasn't varied dramatically. So even though the numbers were low, we still feel pretty confident in those results. So when looking at the service request survey, friendly and courteous, so that's the person who's answering the phone first. Might be reception, might not be reception. There's a lot of different teams that answer phone calls and emails. So this is just about our first response to our customers. Next slide, please. Fast and efficient, this is pretty important. This is, you know, how quickly we respond. So last year, the fast and efficient number was 76. This year it's dropped a little, 74. On the margin, one way or the other. So fast and efficient. Next slide. Dealt with effectively. This is probably the most important part. Did we do the job? Did we solve the problem? And 70% of those said that we did. Last year it was 76. So it is a drop. We still feel pretty happy with that number. It is a drop from the previous. Next slide. So we get lots of service requests. Not all of them provide emails. A lot of them come by phone or different ways. And so of those, and some of them are CODC staff that do those on behalf of other people. So when we conduct this survey, we remove all the CODC staff emails. So the number of surveys that we actually emailed to people was 2,432, and we got 372 responses from that. Slide. These are the top 5 areas that we heard from the most on service requests. Probably not a surprise to you if you've heard from your constituents about issues. They're probably going to be one of these things. Bins, water leaks, building inspection, dog control, and roading.
The difference between your dog control will be town related and roading will be rural related, wouldn't it?
Potentially, although the roading ones could be about like a pothole here in town or something, but yeah, it could be either. Any question about that before I shift gear to talk about the resident survey? Okay, next slide. Fine. So this is an annual survey like the service request survey, and we're just trying to make our services better. So we don't do this survey so that we can celebrate and say what a good job that we've done. If that happens, that's great. But the real purpose of the survey is to identify where some of the might be so we can fix it. The end result is a council that's working to make things better for our community. So we had fewer respondents this year. I can speculate on some reasons for that. I don't know definitively. We had a lot of engagement this year, a lot of big items that our community was asked to respond to. So this resident survey was sort of sandwiched between LTP and Southern Water Done Well. So we had great turnout for both of those. Historic turnout for LTP And amongst the councils involved in our Southern Water done well. We had the highest response rate there. So while we celebrate those, it came at a cost. And I think it's probably the cost for that. So we did have a smaller number. We had a lot of older people, which is not necessarily the problem, but we always aim to have a wider demographic scale so that we hearing from different parts of our community. Slightly more than female, which is a little bit interesting. We generally have higher response rates from females on our surveys, so we drew them in this year.
Either getting out and form their opinion.
Slide
Allowed to have an opinion now.
We want to hear.
It's. Yeah.
So these are just the highlights of the things that scored really highly on that survey. Some of them you would expect. Libraries are generally at the top, which is great for our librarians, but they do provide a service that's quite positive. So it's a little bit tougher when you're noise control, for example. The other thing to keep in consider when you look at these though, is some of the numbers are really small. And when you look at the report itself, those are noted, those that we had really small response rates on. So some of these numbers are based on just a handful. Keep that in mind.
Sports.
Public toilets, I thought was interesting. So we had quite a lot of vandalism in our public toilets. And so, kudos to the property. So maybe they're getting in there and getting those things. Next slide. So where we could improve. So it's not just about celebrating what we've done well, but having a look at what we haven't done as well. And again, when you look at the full report, you can see that some of these aren't huge numbers. We don't have cemeteries and burial process, for example. Large numbers of people who complete our survey don't respond to that question because they just haven't had experience in it. So the numbers can be low. I presented this to ELT. It's an opportunity for them to look at it and say, do we want to dig down further and see? I know.
Really?
But even if you're not at the bottom of the scale, you might be somewhere in between and you might want to know why that is. Might be obvious. Or... Okay, next slide. So when people were asked, what are their top 5 priorities? This is what they listed in order. So water supply is typically first, so that's not a huge change. Sewage system, economic development. Economic development normally features towards the top. And then you had sort of a tie here with these 4 so that they're just listed equally. Pass, reuse, shop, stormwater. So the story on the reuse shop, you're probably thinking, why is this even in the report? It's been closed since 2023. So when it closed, it was still in this survey and people were quite upset about it. And so they listed it as a priority. And so then in future years, we haven't removed it from the survey because it has been identified as a priority. So it shouldn't, in our view at least, shouldn't be dropped off if people think it's a priority. So it remains in there, but it's a little bit of a quirk because the numbers are quite low on it, or because it hasn't existed since 2023. But I think what people are trying to point out is that they want it back. So it has remained in the survey, and I've been questioned about why is it still in there? Don't they know it's closed? I think people do know it's closed. I think the point is they want something like that to reopen. So that's why we've left it. Okay. And then car parking, that's an interesting one that's kind of jumped up, but we've been talking a bit about parking, haven't we? So we've done a survey about parking. We're doing enforcement of parking. So lifted the priority, I think.
Surprising that roads, one of the most influential things there, aren't on it.
Yeah. Yep.
Top 5.
That's top 5.
For how, and it's different for the different wards.
Yeah,
If you look on the
I get
report.
that.
Yeah, so it could be in specific wards. That could be, I don't remember. Next slide, Wayne. And there were lots of questions about performance of elected members.
Keep an eye on this here.
And I just pulled out this one rather than going through all of them because you've seen the report itself. In both of these for counselors, so satisfaction is here, 56%. And last year, 44%. So it's an increase in satisfaction. Same with community board members, satisfaction at 58 and then at 69.
The one to the right.
Dissatisfied.
Oh, okay, sorry, I just, it's a bit blurry.
That's the left. Yeah, it's quite small, dissatisfied, yeah. They wanted to know where people get their information. This is particularly important for comms team because we're always trying to identify where do we spend our money? How do we target our advertising? And so community newspapers and bulletins are still the top number. We suspect there's probably some overlap between this number and this number. Because if you live in Alexandra, this is probably what you probably consider the news your community newspaper. Whereas if you live in Cromwell, you probably see the Cromwell Bulletin as your community newsletter. So it's up for interpretation. So some of those could be duplicates. You could have ticked more than one. But community newspapers and bulletins, those hard copy things, people still really like. So we want to use online things, and that is a place where people go and the others. But those hard copy newspapers and bulletins are still really important for our communities, so we can't forget that. And then you move to some electronic things, sorry, Wayne, the website and Central app and Facebook. Love it or hate it, we'll get information from it. And it's a real challenge for councils, I think, to work in the social media space, but it isn't going away. So we do use that as a resource for lots of information. Sorry. And then when we ask people, are you satisfied with the level of information? They largely said yes. So satisfied for 2025 is 71%, 2024, 61%. Did come through pretty clearly though, when you look at the comments, as people were saying, yeah, we've got lots of opportunities to have our say. We're getting lots of information. That's really good, but we don't get a sense that people are listening. So kind of getting both, we're getting information. We're not convinced always.
Being heard or not getting their own way.
Hard to say. I can't really.
And that's the problem, is that I think there's a big difference between being heard and not getting what you want. I don't know how we ever could cross that bridge to show.
Yeah, I think there's some work that can be done actually by our team to, and we're working on a communication strategy right now to try and make that more clear that the engagement process is a tool, but it's one piece of the pie, and there's lots of things that you guys are looking at when you're making decisions. And that is an important piece. And we need to be able to feed back to the community how that was considered specifically so that they know that it wasn't set aside, that it was taken seriously, but it is one piece.
I'm glad you said we should do that, because at the moment, the only person that's doing that is the media. It's not their fault. It's how they report it. They can't say exactly what happened. So therefore, that becomes the soundbite that people read and becomes the only information they've got, and they make what they want of that. Since you didn't listen.
Yeah.
So I commend you for doing that piece of work, and I look forward to seeing how good it works.
Yeah, and I think it's a two-way street. And I think for us, one thing that we want to do better with your help is to better communicate when a decision is made, how that community input made an impact, because that's a little bit of a challenge sometimes. And I think we can say that people were heard and these were the things that they said, but on balance, we had to look at these costs and these and these other bits and pieces and balance that out. But I think we can probably be better at being clear to the public about how that input was used in decision making. Next slide, Wayne. So we're always looking for next steps, how do we do things better in the future? So when I talked to ALTU about these results, several of the GMs are interested in digging into both of these surveys and trying to figure out how they can use the information to help them data about where potential issues might be. There's going to be some changes in the next couple of years. There's some new performance indicators, which means questions are going to need to change a bit. We've had the same survey for about 10 years with minor tweaks here and there. So in the next year or two, we're going to be making some more substantial changes, which will mean in the short term, we'll have less longitudinal data. But we'll build on that as years go forward. And then some efforts are going to be underway. You can just leave it there. That's right. To be more strategic about how we calendar our engagements, because you would have noticed sort of them coming fast and furious last year. And just this morning, I was looking at my calendar for the rest of this year and 2026. And they're starting to come through thick and fast. And so I think we're going to be working hard to be better at prioritizing the key things and maybe trying to package similar issues together so that we're going to the community fewer times, but in a more meaningful way, rather than, because it's a real challenge for the community and it's a challenge for us. It's a challenge for everybody. And then you sort of question sometimes the information that you get. Is this reliable data or is it feeling rough? So we want to make some improvement. So these are all the community engagements. Actually, they're not all of them, but these are most of the community engagements that we did in this year. And the year's not over. I know this is the last meeting for you guys, but we will still be doing things until early December, at least. So there was a lot going on this year. A lot going on in our team, but a lot going on for you because you've been involved in a lot of this stuff. You've been hearing the reports, you've been doing the community meetings. So that's probably what the treats are about. So it is a celebration because it's not just me and Paula and our team that are doing this stuff. It's all of council. And you guys are out front a lot leading the way. So we appreciate that. This is kind of the same thing, but just written out. So 15 projects in 8 months. You can see some of these say adult and youth. So that's something that we've started doing this year is having separate engagements for the youth that are written similar, but not exactly the same. May or may not have every single question, probably has a whole lot more imagery. And they sit alongside the adult surveys. And these have been pretty popular, particularly with the play challenge that was done to gather information from parks and playgrounds. The quality, we got a whole lot of feedback from young people on that. And of course, on the long-term plan from a lot of high school age students, so not the older ones. They're perfectly capable of answering the same questions that our adults are. So we reworded it to make it sort of slightly more fun. That age group, that high school group is well able to be involved in the kind of work that we do. So we're working harder to get them. This is just lots of numbers, probably not that super exciting. Probably the big number is this one, this engaged visitors. Those are the number of people that went to Let's Talk and completed something, an activity. In most cases, that would be a survey. But when you look at this number, pretty substantial. Those are the number of people who've gone to the page. Maybe they looked at it for a second, maybe they looked at it for an hour. And if they clicked on something, then that's this number. If they go to a page and they look at something and then they decide they're not interested, they go away. Or they click on it and they read something and then they go back later and complete a survey, that would be 2 clicks. We're still getting lots of hard copy requests from folks, so that is something that we will continue doing. It is a challenge from a staffing perspective because hard copy handwritten papers are quite time consuming to document, so you've got to understand the handwriting and you've got to type those out. So we are exploring some different AI tools that might help make that easier. Don't see a world in which we move away from that option. Not at the moment. Next slide, Mike. So you hear a lot about surveys. We do a lot of surveys. You see the reports about the surveys, but what you might not see so much is there's a whole lot of other work that's happening that has very little to do with the survey. And that's the work that's going on behind the scenes all the time with our team, but other teams in council, not just community engagement, waste, water. Lots of different teams in council are out in our community all the time, talking about elections, talking about water, talking about what you can and can't put in the toilet, the AMP show. Getting feedback, this is the play strategy, getting feedback about what young people want in their parks. So, yeah, we don't want to give the impression that our team is all just about cranking out these online surveys. There's a lot of stuff that we do behind the scenes, doesn't always get the visibility that we want. Next slide. I think in the environment that we're in, it's really important to focus on innovation and resourcefulness because we know that money is tight. And we take pride in the way that we do our work. We rely heavily on doing things in-house. Any of you who were involved in those candidate videos will know it was us with a phone in a room over here. We did not have a studio. We didn't have a professional do it. And maybe the results reflect that. But I think that's what our ratepayers and what our residents want. They want us to be genuine. They don't want a big flash setup. They want us to do things efficiently and in a way that takes care of their money the way they would do it themselves. So these, you've seen some of our campaign signs for voting. That young man is Paula's son. So he's one of our models. So we just have gut friends and people that we know. Go out on a Saturday with our phones and took a picture. So apologies to photographers, they're losing our business, but we can do this stuff now. We don't actually need, I'm sure there are times when we would need professional photographers for different things, but we do our own photography for a lot of things. We utilize email databases a lot. We started getting feedback from people saying we didn't know that something was happening. And they would say, you've got our email. Why aren't you emailing us? And I was like, okay. So we are emailing them more. I'm not going to spam people. We don't want to abuse their trust. But we do use our ratepayer databases when it's appropriate, like for LTP, not for every single thing. We don't have a huge email database though, because a lot of people don't get their rates on email. They get them in the post. Quite expensive. So that's a whole nother project to try and change that, both so that we can save money on post and so that we can have access to those email databases so we can inform people when there's big things that they want to be a part of. We've been exploring with AI in lots of different ways. Podcasts and summaries and playing around with Q&A, things that they can produce, some imagery. So we're playing around in that space, trying to find ways to make our job easier. We don't have a big team. We are not a team of 30. We're like a team of 3. So we have to be innovative and resourceful to get it done. So what we really want our community to know is that we are listening, hear what you're saying. You guys hear what they're saying. You're considering those things and taking it in context to build that trust. And that's what our role is, to always look out for the community. And that's what your job is too. So we're sharing this journey together, listening and building trust. Questions?
It's exciting that we have a comms strategy coming and that you guys are talking about innovation and utilizing data and utilizing AI and in-house options, because the reality is the world in years to come will not fill out surveys. People don't want it. They value their time. And we've seen that from some of our results, probably over the last few years, is that now we're more likely to be a certain demographic that are filling in our surveys. And certainly, I'm sure you two have both spoken to your children and said, how often do you fill out surveys? And they say, survey, who does those anymore? So I'm pleased that we're thinking about this now because we do need to be, and I know that Nathan's been working hard on harnessing some of that data that we have because that a lot of that ability to utilise our data in a way to help with decision making and get people's sentiments without them having to go through and tick here and fill in there and write on a hard copy and drop it off at the library. So it's promising. It's exciting. There's
The way of doing things in-house is that we can adapt and learn as we go, and that's really helpful for us. I guess my learning this year has been that youth, despite being developing through a digital age, love a good hard copy survey. So, that's what we want to hear from our people in a form that suits them. So hard copy surveys it is.
I know we can get a really good image of retiree.
Always good, as long as they're willing to donate their time. Just get another stack of papers, give them to all his mates on Chip Friday, gather them all in and bring them on Monday. He's got
Think of
something else to
surveys,
do. I think
Nigel
that's what he
McKinley.
said.
Pick them up as he drops off.
I
Yeah,
feel
no,
a commission coming on.
any questions with Deb?
Good job, it's hard work.
Some good results in there too, some of the elected members.
But even I feel the fatigue of yet another survey, when you get it, you go, oh Christ, another one. And we're the ones that know how it is. I think the will is there to give us that feedback. It's finding a way to get it concisely and appropriately and not miss that out without overwhelming people, because we do ask a lot, but then it's a shame all we hear is you don't ask us or you don't tell us when we try so hard. And you'll never win that game, will you? But
You say 22 was low? It was the survey results, the numbers. I just wonder if there's a correlation between LTP year being low.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, because I think some people think that I told them what I thought in the LTP.
yeah.
So I just wonder if there's some correlation, but it actually doesn't matter. And even though this one does have a plus or minus 7%, it still says we're there and thereabouts. The key thing is that there's nothing particularly earth-shattering about that. There's a whole lot of improvement that's out there that we'll always try to get. Any worse than it was a long time ago when I first had a look at the stuff? No. We're mostly better. And that's back in the days we used to use hard copies of surveys, I think, and some poor student at the university had to probably get the hard copy and put it into some great big computer that was the size of this room or something and spit out the results. So, for those people that say that actually it's a low number, yes, it is, but it shows us that we are consistently there and thereabouts. And it's about showing how can we get to that, a better result. And what I would say, the only real way of getting to a better result is stop change. And that ain't going to happen, so suck it up.
There's been a lot of really positive feedback about the youth engagement, and other councils are following our leads on that and are requesting the formats that we're using and the type of questions that we're asking because they want to achieve that with their young people as well. So I think we're leading the way in that, which is pretty cool. And hopefully we can continue that into the next term as well. Thank you very much. Recommendation, the report be received.
No.
And
I'd like to add to that. Wayne's got something I just prepared before, which Paula and co may or may not like.
Lot to say.
Paula, you know that you're far too young to have a son looking at it.
Stop that.
Him and his flatmates, they were lined up on a Sunday.
Was there beer involved?
That staff are in the process of preparing a new updated community engagement strategy. Comms strategy, wasn't it?
Whatever, I don't know what it was, but it was just,
Comms strategy,
I just wanted to give some context about it.
Communications and engagement.
communications and engagement strategy in the next 6 months. Noted that staff are in the process of determining changes to the process by which residents' opinion satisfaction is gathered and how it will be reacted to.
I ain't trying to sort of say, well, hey, there was some really good stuff that you gave, but you just give us a report to here, cop this. Well, actually, there's some stuff going to happen.
Shame some of this wasn't sent out a couple of 3 months ago before people decided to stand for council. Never read of it.
How it will be reacted to or how it will influence decision making.
Well, whatever, yes, whatever. I just had to find the words to get it before you finished. Sorry, I had with Wayne, but yeah, just
Will inform decision making.
yeah, maybe, yeah. I can do that.
Some of our reactions might be horrid.
Yeah. I just think there's some positive stuff coming, and it's says that there is something is going to happen with this, and especially about the way we do it. And that's actually something that was picked up on, I think. So I think it's really positive. That's what I'm trying to be anyway.
Would you like to move that?
Okay.
Thank you, Neil. Seconded. Thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Just reiterate Ned's point, that thank you all so very much for all you do in your community, because you do communicate amazingly with your constituents, and it makes such a difference. People are informed thanks to the work you do, so.
Take off the team sometimes though, Paula. Fun. Couple of Mentos isn't leveling the playing.
And they had to be chocolate, didn't they?
Appreciated. Thanks, Dad.
To be
Right, page 708. We need a plan for a plan.
Good man.
Delegations during the interregnum period.
Yep, I'll take the point read. Actually, when I was looking through it earlier on, I found out it's a 2022 date in there. Whoops. So sorry about that. So delegations during the interregnum period, the period runs from the date of the official results, which is going to be on or about the 16th of October, until the inaugural meeting of council, which is going to be on the 24th of October. So it's just that little short period. So essentially what this is that all the delegations get handed over to the CEO, not without checks, I suppose we'll call it, and that that he'll be able to make decisions in consultation with the incoming mayor. Then if any significant decisions are made, then they will have to be relayed to council at its first meeting to say what they were.
Anybody got any questions?
Maybe just a technical point. I'm assuming it doesn't apply to the RMA stuff. It's already been done separately.
Oh, no, that's a separate.
Yeah, so there's no conflict. Of course.
No.
I didn't think there was. I just got to ask.
No, there's not.
Thanks, Sally. Seconded. Thank you, Cheryl. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Do we want to take a quick break, or are you guys right to keep going to the end of this bit and then get to our breakers? Right. The mayor's report. I feel like I should have done a video or a PowerPoint presentation. That's all right. As we reach the end of this triennium, I would like to take time to reflect on the huge amount of mahi that we've achieved together for Central Otago over the past 3 years. These have not been easy times, with challenges from rising costs, infrastructure demands, and the ongoing impacts of national reform. But as a council, we have stood together and kept our focus on what matters most, delivering for our people and protecting what makes Central Otago so special. There are many highlights to be proud of. The redevelopment of the Cromwell Hall, Plan Change 19, completing the Clyde Water Treatment Plant, our most successful ever long-term plan process with submissions, Naseby Dark Skies Plan Change, our first elected members' trip to Puketaraki Marae, supporting volunteer groups who are stepping up for their communities with the Omako Hub, Hockey Turfs, Millers Flat Sport and Rec Hub, the Alexandra Library refurbishment, Bannockburn Industrial Land Development, alongside infrastructure upgrades, playground upgrades, and taking on a new pool in Roxburgh, an award-winning architecturally designed pool. Each decision has been about balancing today's needs with tomorrow's opportunities. We've continued to put people at the heart of our planning, and I'm sure that will remain a cornerstone of this council's work. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge 3 of our colleagues who are stepping down. Sally Fineman. I wish we could bottle and sell your community spirit and generosity. It would be a great way to supplement our ranks. Your thoughtful contributions have consistently brought the voice of the Teviot Valley community to the table in a way that is grounded, respectful and practical. Your solutions focused, collaborative and have such a huge heart. You've also been a national finalist in the Superhuman Award, which is an accurate title. We have loved having you with us these past 3 years, and you will be missed at this table. We wish you and Carl all the best, especially Carl, as I know you'll probably be heading home after this meeting to think about what you'll put your hand up for next.
learning how to play golf.
There you go. Nigel. Mr. McKinley. Your business mind, attention to detail, wealth of knowledge, especially in the Three Waters space, and your ability to challenge and debate in a respectful manner have been greatly appreciated at this table. But I think what we will miss the most is your sharp wit, your oratory skills, and your merciless taunting of Councillor Duncan that has led to some hilarious exchanges. I personally have thoroughly enjoyed our phone conversations where we've discussed the challenges of the world and our library exchange program where we've shared some wonderful books. You have been our co-matua for 9 years and you will be missed. And we wish you and Pauline all the best for your next adventures. Which is going to be contributing to the letters to the editor.
He's still there.
You'll reveal that he's Lady Cromwell soon.
Neil Gillespie, Deputy Mayor Extraordinaire. To say you have been a steady hand and have deep knowledge of local government is such an understatement. Your eye for detail to spot a loophole, an unintended consequence, an obscure past decision or slight misalignment with a policy leaves shoes that will be very hard to fill. More than anyone else here, you are Central Otago District Council. When you stepped into representing your community, I was stepping into my first year of high school. Since then, you have championed Cromwell like no one else. These are Pisa. But you've also developed standout governance skills, and you truly understand that though we can debate, argue, disagree, and then vote in opposite directions, at the end of the day, we are a team and we leave each meeting as friends and colleagues once more. Your I have a question face is probably what will be missed the most, but also your humour, banter, and usually calm manner. Kua hinga te tautara e te wao nui a tāne. The totara has fallen in the great forest of Tāne. A totara is a significant native tree symbolising a person of great importance and stature. This whakatoki is used when a great leader leaves, acknowledging their loss. And I did check, you don't have to die, you can just leave. It's so relevant to leaving. Phew! It was a relief.
However, what was that, Joy?
Combined Service has left a mark on this organisation and Central Otago. On behalf of the Council and our communities, thank you. I also want to acknowledge all our elected members in the way you have leaned in, debated hard issues respectfully, and kept Central at the heart of your decisions. To our CODC staff team, your professionalism, care, and tireless efforts often go unseen, but none of what we've achieved would be possible without you. Staff don't come to council to get rich, receive bonuses, or undertake luxury overseas travel business class. You come each day to contribute to work of value, which is not always valued by those you serve. But we see you and we thank you for your efforts and your enthusiasm for all things Central Otago. As this triennium closes, my message is one of gratitude and optimism. We are stronger for the work we've done together, and I am confident that the next council will build on that strength as we continue to plan wisely, invest carefully, and protect the people and places we value most. Ngā mihi. No. Happy to move that be received. Neil, are you happy to second it?
I will, thank you.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And now we are moving to what feels almost quite Americanized, but valedictory comments from retiring councillors. Sally, would you like to take the floor?
I have got something right here that I prepared earlier. After 9 years serving our community, 2 terms on the community board and 1 on council, I've decided not to stand for re-election. It's not a decision I made lightly, but it feels like the right time. I'm incredibly grateful for the journey, the highs, the hard calls, the laughs and the lessons. It's been a privilege to represent the Teviot ward and be part of shaping Central Otago's future. I've grown a lot and I've seen firsthand just how strong, passionate and resilient our people are. Since making that decision, I've been moved by the kind words shared by people across our district. Many have thanked me for taking a big picture approach, and that affirmation means the world to me. Throughout my time here, I've tried to make decisions not just for today, but with tomorrow in mind, always considering the long-term impact on our communities and future generations. Some decisions haven't been easy. I know not everyone sees things the same way, and that's okay. And I learned early on that even something as simple as removing trees can stir strong emotions, and that was the case when we removed some trees at King George Park. But when we removed the poplars near the swimming pool, the response was different. Residents were thrilled to have sunlight streaming into their homes and a clear view of the river. It's those small wins that remind me why being an elected member is so special. I'm now working with a dedicated group to plant native species along that same riverbank. Watching this project come to life is incredibly exciting. It's a symbol of renewal and community spirit. One of the biggest projects I've been involved in is the Roxburgh swimming pool. It wasn't without its challenges, and yes, it did cause me a bit of grief during the long-term plan. Today, I can say with pride that 7 local people will have jobs this summer in Roxburgh because of it, and to me, that's the icing on the cake. I've also been passionate about improving our walking tracks, and I'm thrilled with the network we've built. Paths that now connect one end of town to the other. These tracks aren't just about recreation, they're about connection, well-being, and showcasing the beauty of our region. My 9 years have also been marked by 2 major events that tested and ultimately strengthened our community. The first was the 2017 floods, where I saw firsthand how our people came together in a time of crisis. I, along with the community board, took on a role in the emergency centre for a week as we worked to restore order in the town. It was a humbling experience that showed the true heart of the Tebet Valley. And then in February this year, we faced another challenge, a fire that took out our entertainment centre. But from that loss, I've seen something remarkable, an enthusiastic group of volunteers stepping up to ensure we rebuild a facility that will serve our community for the next 100 years. That spirit of resilience and renewal is what makes this place so special. To the incredible staff of the Central Otago District Council, thank you. Your dedication, professionalism, and tireless behind-the-scenes work have made our jobs as elected members not only possible, but purposeful. Whether it's preparing reports, managing projects, or simply offering a listening ear, your support has been invaluable. I've learned so much from working alongside you, and I have deep respect for the way you serve our communities with integrity and care. Efforts often go unseen by the public, but they certainly haven't gone unnoticed by me. I would also like to give thanks to our former Mayor Tim and to Mayor Tamer for their leadership, and a particular thank you to our CEO, Peter Kelly, for your steady hand. Serving on this council has been an incredible privilege. Sitting at this table with such a committed and thoughtful group of councillors has been an honour I'll never forget. This experience has helped shape who I am, and I know it will continue to influence the person I become over the next decade and beyond. Thank you to everyone who has walked alongside me, challenged me, supported me, and trusted me. Central Otago is a remarkable place, and I'm proud to have played a small part in its journey.
Kelly? Kinley.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, first, I would like to thank my fellow councillors. Thank you for your professionalism, for being prepared to agree to disagree on an issue, but maintain respect and politeness. You've had a council that functions well. You look around elsewhere, you treasure that a wee bit. I wish to thank staff. I believe our community has been and is well served by the calibre of staff within the organisation. I would also like to thank the media. The amount and quality of covering often tedious and complex council affairs, informing the community and holding council and councillors to account is a vital role, and we are lucky in Central Otago, quality of our media and journalists. Lastly, since it is an election year, a comment on voting. Democracy, I believe, is the bedrock of our community. The essence of democracy is that you ask those who stand for office to front up to you, and that you can vote them in for a fixed term and then vote them out. Some people suggest different forms of representation, but it's pretty simple. Once you go away from one person, one vote, and requiring councillors to represent the whole community, not just part of it, you're in trouble. It's no longer democracy. So my message to everyone is to value your vote. Finally, thank you, the community, the privilege serving on your behalf in your council.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Back in 1998, I made a choice about what I wanted to do in terms of getting involved in a different aspect of the community. So I stood for election for the community board. Actually, I stood in 1995, to be honest. I missed out. I wasn't put off. After 3 years of that, I really had enjoyed what was happening and what the local government space was doing to make sure the community would be a good place in the future. And in particular for me, make sure that when our kids came back home, that they'd have the same opportunities and benefits that Joy and I had in bringing them up there. One's home out of 4 so far, but we'll see what happens with the rest. So I stood for council in 2001. I actually told Murray McMillan, Terry Emmett and Gordon Stewart, who were the sitting ward councillors, that I was going to have a crack and one of them would miss out as a result. And it did work out that way. Just a shame it was one of my very good friends, Murray McMillan, who I have to give a lot of credit to for why I came here. I spent a lot of time with Murray, and his encouragement was really quite helpful and made me know that I was doing the right thing. So I joined a council in 2001 that had Lindley Claridge, Martin McPherson, Stu Millis, Terry Emmett, Gordon Stewart. So that's the Alexandra Ward, Cromwell Ward as it was then. The Ernsley Ward, Tony Lepper and the late Graham Smith. Manahirakia Ward was Colin Stevenson. Nea Toto, Mike Dowling, Kid O'Malley, and Roxburgh was I think that then Graham Dillon and John Lane. So yeah, there's been a few changes, but there's still a couple that are still around and then back in and out. First mayor was Malcolm McPherson in his first term, and following the footsteps of Bill McIntosh. Back in a time when I think under Bill McIntosh's reign, I think the members stood to talk. I think. Then I got to the table and thought, well, look at that. Didn't make sense. Or a tie. That's about as far as I got to start. But under three terms of Malcolm in a really good space, Tony became the mayor in 2010 and decided that I could be his deputy, which was a huge honour, and that people often portrayed as being something that was a big deal. And I habitually say, well, it's only an issue if the mayor goes mad or dies, and I don't think Lepper's got either of those two things in his plan. And so it's a good place to be, and to know that there's and make sure you know more about how the council does actually operate. Then, of course, Tim stood in 2016 and he became the mayor and gave me the privilege of being his deputy as well. And that's passed on now when Tim moved on to the last 12 months with you, Tamer. The leadership of all of those mayors has been a big part of getting us to where we are today. Every one of them was different, did things in a different way. What they did do and still do to this day is made sure that as a council, we worked collaboratively towards the bigger picture. And Sally have both referred to some of the robustness of the debates and discussions that we've had, in your words, Tamer, about how we got through that, said what needed to be said, and never stopped respecting each other along the way. And it wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about everybody striving at this table to try and make sure they're doing the right thing for the right reasons. And we got there. Was it always the right place? You look back and say, no. But at the time, it was the right decision. The best thing is that we supported each other when we moved forward from it. There's a lot of jokes around some of the stuff and comments about reference back to something that happened in 2006, just to wind people up. But that's part of the relationship and the respect that I think that's always been at this table. Today, we're in an environment where, for the first time ever, especially this election process, we're seeing a very different level of campaigning. The misinformation that's out in our community is significant, and it's, I think, bad for democracy, and it's too easy for people to have an opinion backed up by nothing without knowing, or make outrageous comments. I just hope that as part of this election process that this community gets out and votes in big numbers, because no matter what, no matter who you vote for, you've got to have been part of the process. And if people don't, then I think that's not good for democracy going forward. We wouldn't be where we are today without the staff that work in council. I actually applied for a job in council before I went on to the community board. I didn't get it, thank God. And I mean that quite honestly, because what I've seen in the whole time I've been part of this organisation is that the work and the effort that staff put in to try and do the right thing for the right reasons is huge, and it is not insignificant. And a lot of times it's at their cost, because they get vilified for some of the things that they dare recommend and only doing their job. But what I will say about the staff that I've worked with over the years is that they have a passion to do the right things for Central Otago. And every now and again, as elected members, we have the occasion to correct them and get them on the right track. But that's okay, because they don't know what they don't know, and then often they would actually put us on the right track as well. And that's what you want. It's really important. So to all those staff that I've had the pleasure of being connected to during that time, we've had some really good people. I've got a wee note here that says Peter Kelly, Sancia Jacobs, Leanne Mash, Phil Malhopt, John Kearney, Steve Green. So that's the last 6 chief executives of this council, I think. The one before that was, before Steve Green, was Pat Kearney, I think. Kearney. And that's the 7 that we've only ever had. So we outlasted 5 of them, and wasn't even one of them, and the other one's still here. But Peter, on behalf of all those chief executives, I want to pay and acknowledge what you and those before you have done. It can't be easy. Dealing with elected members in particular, and some are more opinionated and knowledgeable than others, and don't like being wrong. But I think you are typical of what has been before you in terms of showing that respect, helping us make the right decisions, acknowledging when what's being recommended may not be the right way to go and where we get to, and keeping things together. And I just think that's huge kudos to you and the people that you have come along afterwards. I can't then not acknowledge the people at this table today and all those that have come before you, and some of the friendships are not, I think I've formed a friendship pretty well with every person I've been on the council with, and I value that and always will. The connections that I've made and what I've learnt has been insignificant, and I treasure that, and I look forward to retaining some of those friendships, or actually all of those friendships. Sorry, Stu, I'm going to include you going forward. I have to acknowledge, I have to acknowledge the support that I've had from my employer in the past, because without that support I wouldn't have been able to sit at this table. And in more recent times I've realised how much time and effort they enabled me to put towards this role. It's not insignificant, and I'm not going to mention how many hours I think it is a week now, because they probably got my salary back for quite a while. But really have to acknowledge that. And the reality is that for anybody that's looking to come into this table, is that your workload here is going to be significant going forward. And that's even with the 3 waters going. You're still going to have a significant workload. I just hope that people are prepared to put that effort in to make it happen. It doesn't just fall to a few. The biggest single acknowledgement that I have to make is to my wife Joy. The sacrifice that she's had to make for me, being distracted on council-related business, the other stuff I'm involved in, is unable to be measured. And I wouldn't be able to do what I've done without that support. So I have to acknowledge her, and I couldn't do it without her. For the kids, I didn't realise just how much of a impact it actually can have on your children when they're growing up, and the pressure of the old man being part of an organisation that people love to hate. I think my kids found themselves on more than one occasion defending things about the council because they felt that their father was being disrespected, if you like, for want of a better word, and they felt the need to defend that. And I I wasn't aware, and I'm a bit embarrassed by having not been aware of that, but to future councillors, be aware of the impact on your family and especially your kids. It's harder today, going to be harder today on your kids than it was back in the time that I've had. You know, things out there are merciless as it is without having someone who's on the council as your father or mother. So be prepared for that. So I made a choice back in 1998 as a community board, in 2001 with the council, and I made a choice now to say my time is done. I made a choice to also hopefully get myself a seat at the Dargan Regional Council. Because I think I can offer something that'll contribute to wider community and hopefully get more of my kids home as a result of that. But that's a choice I make to put my name forward, and whether I get elected or not is another matter. The thing is, though, that if by doing that, I can't lose. I know I'm not coming back to this table. So does Nigel and so does Sally. But to the rest of you that are trying to come back, can I say congratulations? And I really hope that this community sees fit to recognise the work that you have done, including those that aren't here as well for various reasons, that this community needs experienced and seasoned people to support the district going forward. And there will be some new faces here. You have the challenge of saying, and it's been said before, I know I'm not coming back and you don't know. So you don't get the benefit, perhaps, if you don't get back to this table, of some very nice words from your mayor. So I congratulate you for having the courage to stand, and I wish you every success. And I look forward to having the catch up with you after you all get sworn back in at your first meeting. I'm along just because I can. No. Otherwise, no, that's enough for me. Thank you very much. It's been a blast, and we've got some more work to do yet. So we should move on to agenda item number 25.18.23.
To the brave shield.
Thank you very much, guys.
You've got a right to reply, just a couple of quick words.
Yep, that's that quick.
I just think that I drove in this morning on the sunrise to Central Otago and looked how amazing it is. But today's a really sad day for me because I met really three great friends, and like three definitely here. And we're going to lose a wealth of knowledge with retiring these wonderful people. And I know, Sally, you haven't given the hours at this table, but it's a shame. A lot of ways you've had a couple more terms, or the community would be better because you're exactly the same level of power and expertise that these two other wonderful men have given us. So it's a sad day for us, and the people who are coming into those gaps, and this table will be full. It will be full of hopefully wonderful people, but they've got a lot of mahi to get up to track with the respect of the people that you three have got. And we're this last term we've been a fantastic council. We've fantastically led. And it's a great family we've got, and we're going to lose three wonderful people. But good luck in the future. You've given everything you want, and the community couldn't have asked for any more work, and then you've given us so all the best.
Guys, right. We now lead to the end of this formal part. September 2025 governance report. We've got these status updates there. Have you got anything that they want to?
Yeah, I do.
I'd like to acknowledge first before you, the council owned land, Pines Plantation.
Yeah.
What?
I know.
I had it closed,
I know.
titles issued. That has been there since
2017.
Yeah.
2017.
It's
gonna
300
reduce a lot of
pages.
Yeah. November 2017 action memo sent to the property officer. And now we have families living there. It's pretty cool.
Wish the same could be said for item number 19.8.10, which is the council adopting 4404 2010, subject to the development of an updated addendum. I'm going to crack a bottle of champagne when that gets done.
Only been there since 2019.
Oh, but actually, no, that's not true. There was a previous item, I think, before that,
Yikes.
where it sat. To the
We're
previous.
confident by the end of the year, aren't we, Peter?
And is it for?
Well, 4404 is done. It's the addendum that's the issue.
It's the addendum, that's right. But noting that the government are changing the water standards, but it's all go right down to at the connection level, which will supersede everything.
Don't make convenient
Check it out.
excuses.
Is there anything else that people wanted to note on that governance report? In which case, let's get back to the start of it. Report we received. Happy to move in second. Thank you, Sally and Sarah. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Community board minutes from page 749. Someone happy to move and second those, please. Thanks, Sally and Neil. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The date of the next meeting will be the inaugural meeting of the new biennium, and it will be on the 24th of October, 2025.
I better put that in the calendar.
I'll be in that. I'll be in the calendar for the 23rd.
See how that goes, yeah.
Oh, it's 24th. That's not straight. That's awesome.
Perfect. Now, for the reasons outlined on page 757, we are going to have a look at that resolution to include the public.
Yeah. Is this?
Yeah.
Don't worry, mate.
Don't worry you.
Right, matters out, reasons outlined on page 757, 758. I'm happy to move that we are going resolution to exclude the public.
Just a little.
Oh, I think so.
Oh, sure. Yeah, some secretary.
There's a B.
There is a B.
Right.
And when.
Are we done?
there are people who are, public.
Right.
So I want to add, that Damien Spring and Paul Miles, from Santana Minerals will be joining the meeting for the item 25 due to their knowledge of the access.
Feel like that would not be a surprise to anybody.
I don't think so.
Yes, I'm happy to remove recommendation A and B. Somebody happy to second that? Stu? Discussion? Those in favour? Against? Carried. And while Wayne sorts that, we will take a 3-minute break. Fill your copies, fill your rubbish.